Should be a third, but.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Dr. Mack?
Yes, I can.
All right. Thank you. All right, and, good. We don't have to do this.
No, not this time. So first up on the agenda today, we have a group of students that are here to discuss with you guys. Been through a couple rounds of wall tests, and the board's policy is after that, you have to have a meeting with the board to determine what next steps are. So I've got their test that you guys were able to look at yesterday. I'm happy to pass those down. If you want to look at them again, or want to see anything on.
I didn't get a chance to cover all of them yesterday, so.
So we got 4 here with us, 2 on screen. I think, yeah, number 3 is joining us right now.
And can the students on the screen hear us? Okay.
It's great if you want to, I don't know if you want to have them introduce themselves, you know.
Yeah, please, that would be nice. So if you would stand up and, or
They want this.
you don't have to stand up. Just
That's terrible.
I know. Well, I want to know who you are.
My name is Allison
Allison,
Not.
not
It goes by Katie.
Yes.
Katie.
Yes, sir. I'm Kara Bartrell.
Sarah,
Morgan
Morgan
Dilly.
Gillen,
Ben Quattlebaum.
Ben. Who do we have on screen there? Can you unmute yourself?
My name is Barry Powers. I'm a student here at the Northwest campus at UAMS.
Thank you, Barry.
I'm Tiara Mickens.
Thank you, Tiara.
Alexis McGon, I'm also at Northwest.
All right, what's his first name again? Alexis, thank you. All right, and so you all know why you're here. Can you tell us why do you think that
Wasn't sure.
yeah, didn't pass? What's going on?
And I'll tell you guys, they want this to be interactive, so if you don't talk to them, they're going to call us.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure each of you got a different scenario, so if you would, we'll start with Katie.
Sure. To be honest, I'm not sure why I'm not doing well on these. The first time that we had the first exam was right after finals week. And this past year has been pretty stressful for me and my family. So I felt like I had to choose between doing well in classes or doing well on this exam. And I did really well in my walk. So I thought, I'll take what I've learned from the local class. I'll read the red book and I'll focus on what I really focus on. And then I'll just take it. And so I took it. I didn't pass the first one. For the second round, I got a friend and we talked through it together and then everything together, and I felt better about it. The second one, we passed it as well. And honestly, I don't know why or what I should do differently if there's next time.
How long do you think you spent studying?
The first time I took, other than the time that we spent in the law class, which was throughout the whole semester, I spent one day reading the red book with a friend. The second time I also spent about a day. Not gonna lie, mentally I was really exhausted that day, so I don't think it went very well.
And do you know what you can do to prepare yourself for your taking again?
I really don't, sir. Normally, I like to read, I'm a reader, so normally I do well on exams if I read. So I feel like I must be missing something really important, that I read this twice and I'm still not passing. So,
I'm gonna ask you all the same question.
Yeah, no,
I want to
anyway.
ask all the same question. So how much are you, I'm curious, how much are you able to draw on your work experience as an intern?
not much. I haven't worked in community. I work at the Cancer Institute at UMass compound. and I've done that since, second year, so I have about a year and a half there. And that's all I have.
So I'm familiar with, you're talking 200 or 300 drugs that you're dealing with, and most of them are usable
It's
drugs, so you haven't had any retail experience.
And I'll tell you guys, no one ever complains about me being quiet, but there's only one microphone in the room for the people on screen, especially like Dr. Mack here, and it's on that little camera, so speak up. It's, when I'm loud, people think I'm angry at them, and I'm just loud, you know. Dr. Jolly, you gotta speak up too.
Liz and John are great. They speak up really loud.
Me and you. Oh.
Have the students had a chance to see what they missed? Do we do that?
No, so traditionally, on the students, it's a pass fail, and the board has never given me permission to review the test with them. We have had, in distant history, a couple times where we have had a couple students that had language barriers that we actually sat down and helped do a secondary review with. It's been a little bit, but we've revamped the test, I think, since then as well.
And then everyone has the ability to re-listen to your presentation. Is that correct, Dr. Kirtley?
That is. We also link it on our website, I believe, or send to all the reciprocity folks so they can see it.
Okay, so Allison,
Yes, sir. You can go ahead.
so Katie, knowing that, what do you feel like you need, what do you need to focus on
I really,
as you study? What are the parts that you're missing from your experience?
I really appreciate Dr. Mitchell's idea about reviewing sort of what we did and what we did wrong, maybe in the ultimate version of the exam to see why, like the logic behind why we were wrong in some of our answers. Awesome.
I don't know that I asked yet. I was just curious if that happened.
No, we've never given like a copy of the exam back for review for students. That's a little different than how we handle reciprocity. That's completely, but we have done a secondary.
All right, let's hear from all of them, if it's okay with y'all on the same topic, and then we'll come back and ask questions individually. Go ahead, please.
So going on that, I know it's understandable, you can't give the test back. You know, when anybody sharing those questions, but I just have the same thoughts that if I could just see what I missed, because I felt pretty good taking the test, and then afterwards, you know, found out I didn't pass. I wanted to know like which questions did I still have trouble with and what I should be focusing on. That I didn't get that the first time around either, had to go around blindly studying. I did spend more time studying for the second, the retake than I did the first time around. But I was also juggling 2 other tests, and so that kind of stressed me out too.
Go ahead.
Sorry, what's your work experience?
I work at a community university.
My own study our law class.
Yes, please.
For the first law exam, I only studied the law, our law class slides. For this one, I went over the book a little bit, but we're only doing a week and we still have another exam, so I feel like I have something to say that. Where do you work? At Baptist. I do Baptist in rural, in compounding, education.
My turn.
Yes, sir.
So for the first exam, I did similar to what Morgan was talking about. I looked over the slides and also the resources that were given to us by Dr. O'Brien. And I went into it thinking that I had some comprehension of it, and obviously I was missing something. So when I went to study for the second exam, I spent the winter break trying to do about 2 to 3 hours a day of looking over the law book itself, looking over the 2021 and 2020, not 21, 22 and 21 review sessions and trying to see where I possibly missed, and also going throughout the Arkansas document about controlled substances and trying to see like how to like try to pick that in my brain. And I'm also an overthinker, and I noticed that like during the first exam as well as the second exam, I was overthinking a lot of the questions, especially this select all that apply. My brain just was going back and forth a lot, and I found that to be an issue, I guess, with the true and false, but I tried my best not to. I noticed that with one of the true and false, after I took the exam, I went back and changed one of the true and false, but then I was like, I can't do that. I got follow Dr. Curley's advice, and so I just turned it in. And my work experience involves essentially just research and inpatient hospital experience at St. Vincent's. I've worked there for about 7-8 months now, but I did have a past at working at ExpressRx before I did research for the college for about 3 to 4 months.
All right.
Like that you actually read the law book. That's a very good place to start.
All right, Tiara, you want to tell us?
Yeah, so as far as studying, I used the law book as well as the law review video from November. I attended the law review and rewatched it as well for the second exam. I think I'm the same way. I just overthink a lot of the questions, especially the select all apply, and second guess myself a lot. And as far as work experience, I don't have much in the pharmacy, the community pharmacy.
Thank you. Barry?
Yes, sir. So my first experience with the law exam, I felt was completely and totally on me. I didn't feel as though I prepared enough, and so I deserved to fail. The second time around, I felt as though I put the best effort forth that I could, given time constraints and everything else we had going on with volunteer hours and the midpoint the day before, et cetera. I studied the law review, the slides that we were given again from class that were open back up. I found some Quizlets and went over those, and it just wasn't good enough. So I'll have to find something else to direct my attention to and try and do the best I can next time. I feel as though maybe sleep was a factor as well, because I noticed I did, like, as soon as I left the exam, I noticed I missed like 3 bonehead questions on the controls, which should be like gimmies. So I take responsibility for that as well. As far as experience, I worked 3 to 4 months, similar to what Ben said. I did community pharmacy before coming to school, and then I've done our community and hospital rotations, P1 and P2 year respectively.
Alexis?
As far as studying goes, the first time I took the law exam, I took the information that I took from the class and of course, the recordings. And then when we took the exam, I didn't make it. The second time around, I think it was the time lapse, the amount of time that from the first exam to the second exam, it was just kind of like an overwhelming amount of information that I kind of felt like catch up. And, the fact that I didn't make it just kind of tells me like, it's got to be a different way of studying for this exam. Like I feel like it's got to be more delicate studying that needs to be done on my part. Like whatever that may mean, like maybe collaborative studying time with another student or something, but just a more careful way of reviewing the information. So I know what I'm talking about when I take the exam again. As far as practice, I work at a small retail pharmacy. And of course, doing my rotations and all, but I've never really had any other experience.
Anybody have any questions? Comments? Any questions or comments, maybe?
No, I'm wondering, they all definitely tried to study and did study, but didn't make it work out for them. I'm just wondering, should they really put a lot of time into Dr. Kirtley's recordings? Those are very, very important. Read through the book to understand what the law really means. It seems like they're all very good students and they should have been, passed it. So I don't know that there's anything we can offer to help them, but they really need to put their effort into this if we do allow them to take it again.
If I can say, because I've taken a few law tests, I have 17 pharmacist licenses, so I have to take the NPJ in 16 of those states and then Arkansas license test. These questions are not, what does the law say? Right, and you guys know that because you've now taken it twice. It is a practical application of the law in a real world situation. So as you're going through and you're reading the slides from your course at school and you're looking through Dr. Kirtley's review and watching that, be thinking of what that practically looks like in different pharmacy settings. Not just if the law is in front of me, can I pick out, is this a correct copy and paste of the law, but a practical application of in practice. How does this impact the patient? If I'm a pharmacist, how am I going to make my decision about whether or not to fill the prescription based on what the law is, right? So it's not going to be a what does the law say? These questions are how does the law apply? The other, tip I can give you is, because you've taken it twice now, there are questions on what classification controlled substances are. Is it controlled at all? Is it a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or a 6? That question's going to be on there. There's going to be a section, right? Those should be gimmies. We're not going to pull a random drug that you've never had in one of Dr. Dunn's classes or that hasn't been dispensed in 30 years. Like, these are regularly dispensed routine drugs. So those should be gimmies. The other thing that helped me when I would study for law tests with the different states is because I practiced here for so long, I knew the Arkansas law forwards and backwards, right? And so when I would study for all the other states I was taking, the things that were different about those states is what jumped out at me. So when you're looking at federal law versus Arkansas law, like this is the Arkansas law test. So the question is, if you're a practicing pharmacist in Arkansas, what is the law? So when you're reviewing, make sure you make note of those things where we have maybe more stringent requirements than what federal is. Those things will be helpful.
I think one of the big things that we generally see is not just from the students, but also with reciprocity. We have traditionally given an hour and a half for the test. And I have friends of mine, classmates, that if you gave them 3 days, they'd agonize for 3 days and analyze and agonize and keep going back. And, so Dr. Jolly took it yesterday and we joked we were going to give you 15 minutes to take it. And in reality, just like the hoop quizzes that I know Dr. Richmond does, I think sometimes, for pharmacy, we have to make those decisions on the fly constantly in practice. I think that work experience helps get the experience of look at it, make a decision, keep moving, versus the time suck that you can have of this amount of time. I think with all the MPJE, when you take it, you have a set amount of time. You don't know what's coming ahead of you, but you cannot move backwards on that test. NAPLEX is the same way for you guys. When you answer a question and it goes to the next one, there's no, oh my gosh, now I know the answer to the last one. It's an only forward motion on those tests. So we try to say, please don't try to read more into the question that there is. Please don't overanalyze the question. Like, read the question, go, if I was in practice, would this make sense, and go. There's some things, and the other thing I will tell students, just like I tell reciprocity folks, first of all, the good news is, like, the board's not upset with you right now. This is a very stressful situation. I can appreciate for the board, but they are actually if anything, they're worried and wanting to be helpful towards you and give you suggestions, because, you know, we designed this test for you to be successful, and we invest a lot trying to help our kids to be successful in the state. You've seen two versions of my test, our test that we put together. Version 3 is going to look very much like the layout and the content, the way we approach stuff as version 1 and 2. I would suggest you guys, you know, getting together and going, you know, what was my struggle like? What didn't make sense to me? And we also talk about, some people love true false, some people hate true false. Well, that's about 30% of the test. Some people hate multiple choice, some people love multiple choice. That's about 30% of the test. The schedules is going to be another 10, 12% of the test. And, you know, if you look at it, and I don't think you have to necessarily get into the idiotic nuance of specific chemical names, but all your benzos and benzo-like drugs are going to be 4s. All the opioids, except for a couple of things, are going to be 2s in solid form. The syrups are going to be a different classification. Even those generalities are worth making, because there's a lot of bright line differences that you can automatically isolate, that it's pretty close to that. Our board has traditionally thought those things were important as to what schedule something's in, because of prescriptive authority being so subject to what schedule a drug's in, or the rules around controlled substances based on what you can do with them by what the schedule is.
Which is another thing there's gonna be questions on, right? Who can prescribe what? Know the difference in an optometrist and an ophthalmologist.
On this board website, have a cheat sheet on that?
We actually have a chart on prescriptive authority. If you go in the law book and other forms and related documents, it's right there.
On the main page of the website too.
Yeah.
So you guys, did you use that when you studied?
It's in our Blackboard folder.
Oh, good.
Also have it on the wall page.
The other thing, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is, K-type questions always stress me out, right? But I intentionally looked through this test, yesterday. On the K-type questions, they're not trick questions. Same for really any of the questions on the test, but if one of the answer choices is not correct, it's like very obviously not correct. It's not, we're not trying to trick you and then be like a sleight of hand or like some tiny little minor detail. It's very obviously not correct. Like there's no intention on John's part when he writes this test to make it tricky.
We took out all the orange is blue and blue is yellow, and what is the square root of 3 on Sunday? We removed all that stuff, but there were some crazy questions on the test when I got here. That's been a long time.
Okay, and a study trick for me is just to do a little bit at a time. Don't try to absorb the whole thing at one time. Just kind of put it into sections or little categories or like little files. Study that, make sure you got file A down. Before you move to file B, review file A, and make sure that you absolutely have it down. And just kind of take a progressive approach. And that works. That's what worked for me. So just little bits at a time.
The thing that I was going to mention, Dr. Kirby mentioned yesterday that I took the test yesterday, first time in 18 years that I've taken the law exam. So I was a little nervous about taking it. But and you guys have seen pretty much the same test I put. I would say out of 76 questions, there was honestly one that I felt like was more nuanced information. The other 75, there were common themes. And did you guys kind of pick up on some things that, you know, are heavily covered as part of the law exam? I know I did, just in taking the test yesterday. So, you know, I think the common thing that I saw is kind of what Dr. Mitchell was saying earlier is these are a lot based on scenarios that you have to know how in practice that feel like that it protects your licensure. So, you know, like transfers and, you know, who can prescribe what, how many days supply.
You can sell drugs too.
You can sell drugs too. You know, those type of things. So I would say when you're going through your, you know, John's, Dr. Kirby's review excellent source, but be thinking about those. If I was in practice, what were the things that I would be running across fairly common that I need to know as a practicing pharmacist? You know, the nuanced information that's in the law book, you know, about multiple exams, but they're not trying to, the exam is not designed to try to pick out this one little thing in the law book that is pretty obscure. It's big topics, right? So focus on those things and really know back and forth. And then scheduled drugs, that was a part of the test yesterday. I did pass, by the way. So
Well, it's under review still, actually, but.
did pass.
Did Harold pass?
25.
He just had the answer sheet and just filled them in, and he didn't even like.
Yes, and full disclosure, he just wanted to fill in the bubble sheet. He didn't even look at the actual test. So he wanted to see what score he would get with his college method of guess on everything.
But the one thing that I struggled with the pharmacist is I remember as a student, when I was answering what schedules were in, I could see the bottles in my mind.
That's it.
And I could see the C4 in my mind or the C3, and I've lost that knowledge. And so yesterday in a hospital, I just care if it's a C2 or it's a 3 through 5, right? And so that was the part. So knowing that, if I was going to be taking it again, that's obviously something I would focus on.
The other thing I will say is that, and you may tell them this before they take it, but on the short answer, the graders give partial credit. So if it's a 3-point question, there's, you know, 3 things that they maybe are looking for. And so, right, more rather than less, right? Like because you can get partial credit, and for some of you guys, if you had done a little bit better on the short answer, you would have passed. Or really, really close. And so there's just a tiny little space to write, but on the back of your score sheet is a whole blank. Like, we'll give you more paper.
Yeah.
Don't write an essay, but there is an opportunity for partial credit on those. So write all that you know.
I guess I'll bring up the rear, everybody else has had a chance to talk. I'll come at it more from an academic perspective. You all are P3 trained, so you are bright people. You have been able to get to your second semester of your third year of school. You're smart people, so I know that you have the capability of learning the material. One thing that I would discourage you though from it put out in your mind is, I wish I knew what I missed. What you need to know is what you need to know. Okay, so don't go about it from the mentality, let me figure out what I missed just so I can pass the exam. Then it becomes a let me learn to the exam, but then that leaves you walking around potentially with a deficit of practice of what you know legally. We would like to have been able to kind of shoot some questions at you from a thematic standpoint, but when we did look at the exam yesterday, it's like a shotgun approach. It's kind of all over the place. So let me give you some tips, and I would encourage you to write this down. I don't know if we can share with them some notepads.
Yeah.
And then
I know, I kind of wondered a second ago.
Books, yeah.
So first and foremost, you can pretty well discount that there will be any federal law exam type questions. Now, I don't know if there are poison packing prevention packages, but you're not going to get things like what's the Food and Drug Cosmetic Act 1938 or what's the Durham Law. You're not going to get those things. The majority of what you're going to get is state law and controlled substance law. Now, obviously, you need to learn those reconciled, because you need to know what controlled substance law is in Arkansas. So the federal law applies, but there may be differences, and so you need to know what those differences are as well. So what I would encourage you to do, and what you need not to do is try to skim and only cover the spots that I missed. You need to be able to know that you're studying the law. So first I would go to the Board of Pharmacy website and I would print out every one of the regulations. Okay? Have those ready and then go back and listen to Dr. Kirkler's law review. And you could probably listen to the last one, but if you really want to catch it all, you can maybe listen to the last two. And as he goes through his law review, he goes by regulation. So have a pen and a mark and a highlighter in hand and highlight the portions that he tells you this is important, this is not important. That way you know the things that you don't have to study. I'm sure Dr. O'Brien would also tell you that as academicians, we don't put everything on our slides. That's intended to be sort of a summary or a prompt as we're lecturing. And so use the slides as a outline, if you will, but you still need to know the content of the regulations. And so I tell students that I think it's important that as you go through the regulation, that you at least go through it and read it, or when you get to some of the legalese stuff, just skim it. Because, and it'll become obvious to you, those things that are just lots of information that you're never going to be asked. But highlight the high notes. And then what you've done is in your mind's eye, the same as Dr. Jolly said that he could envision the C on the bottle from practice. You can see, oh, I remember seeing it on that page in Regulation 7 and it was on the left-hand side. If you have reviewed it in context, that way you've let the slides prompt you, but you've listened to Dr. Kirkley as he went through and you've highlighted and you have laid eyes on the regulations. That doesn't mean that you have to study them line to line, and quite frankly, there are some of them that are one page, like the Arkansas Pharmacy Support Group. Just know generally what it is. We're not going to ask you what's the executive committee made up of and those sorts of things. You can look at it, awesome. And Dr. Kirk will support that in his video. Also, from a state law perspective, go to the Arkansas Board of Pharmacy website. And there are going to be recent updates on the law page. There's also a list there to just refresh who can prescribe what. Okay, so use those resources on the main homepage. I don't think you need to print the Pharmacy Practice Act because the regulations pretty much flesh out everything. So from a study perspective, being efficient, focus on the regs, okay? Now we've begun to change them from regulations to rules. It's the same thing. Don't worry about that. Obviously, controlled substances, that's going to be covered heavily in Regulation 7. But you also should refer to the DEA pharmacist manual. You can Google it online. There are several versions. I think there's a 2010 version, and 2020, and then a 2022 version. So get the DEA pharmacist manual. It's plain English version. It's a guidance document. It does constitute the law, but it does summarize the federal regulations. And you probably will have known through your lectures enough about that you can go through and skim that as well. But I still encourage you to go through and read that information. Knowing the drug schedules, there's on the website in the law index, there's a list of controlled substances. I think how's that appeared on?
There's a controlled substance list with the Department of Health that lists all of them for Arkansas. Okay. But a lot of it is scientific chemical names of things that aren't even drugs.
Yeah, so you just need to focus on the common names. Okay. Now, are we asking generic, brand, mix?
I believe it's mainly by generic.
Okay. So that way you don't have to go and know that Zohydrin, you just need to know how to code it. Okay. So know the common names, skip the long chemical names, those things are not important. How to take the exam. When you come to true false questions, and none of these are intended to be tricky, read the question and limit your answer to the four corners of what that question says. Don't read it and say, well, what if this, or what if that, or what if something else, or and what if something two else's. And if you find yourself, going over this question and trying all these what ifs, clear your mind. Maybe the best way to clear your mind is just go to the next question, okay? And if that way you go to the next question, you begin to think about something else, and then at some point, you come back to that question. And when you come back to that question, purposefully limit yourself, what is the question asking? Okay? Answer the question. Now, there's going to be likely, there'll be a scenario that, given this, then there's a purpose of the question, and so sort of a what if, if you will. You're gonna have to know both parts. You're gonna have to, that's what Dr. Mitchell said it's applied. You have to understand in context of practice. So strictly think about that scenario and answer the question that's being asked, okay? Students often have, and that's usually the problem with true false, is you just read too much into it, okay? Students often have trouble with K-back questions. Here's how you pick a K-back question. And you know what those are? Those are questions, you get a question, and then you got 3 to 4 answers, and then you got 3 or 4 answers that becomes a combination of these 3 or 4 answers. Think of each of those first sets of answers as a true false question. If this is the question, true or false, does this apply? And if it does, circle it. If it doesn't, exit out. Does the next one apply? Does the next one apply? So what you're basically doing when you answer a question with 4 K-type questions, you're answering 8 questions. Okay? So you review those answers, do they apply? And then at the end, you end up with, okay, these apply, these don't. So B and C apply. Well, then just go look at your answers that you're supposed to choose from and look for the ones, and if you know that it doesn't include B and C, well, it must be wrong somewhere. Okay, so that really becomes a test taking skill. Now, this is another thing, and this will, and this advice applies for everything, obviously. On exams where you can't go backwards, you're just gonna have to answer the question and move on. But on our exam, you do have the chance to come back. If you are not sure about an answer, you've looked at the question and you've narrowed it down, and I think the answer is A or B, but you're not sure. Do not write down an answer and then come back and change it. The best thing to do is just don't answer the question. Leave it alone. Go on, finish the exam, come back to it. Okay? And come back to it as many times as it takes. Maybe you got 3 questions now you need to come back to. And you come back to this first one and you're still not sure. Leave it alone. Leave it alone until you are finally at the point that you're forced, it's time to make a decision. And here's what my best answer is, and mark it and leave it alone. Okay? Now,
There were a couple we saw where y'all had erased what you originally wrote, which was correct, and then put an incorrect answer.
I see that every time.
That had happened on the test.
So, I know you know this in school, that you change your answer, then you kick yourself after you've done it, okay? So trust yourself to make the rational choice. Once you've made it, leave it alone. Because if you pick an answer, then you have the tendency to want to come back and change it. Whereas if you leave it alone, you haven't answered that question yet. So it's the psychology of, okay, I'm still trying to choose the right answer, and then choose it. And then the last thing you do is go through your exam and make sure, if I meant to answer A, did I answer A? If you accidentally answered B, well, then of course you would change it. Because that's not really what you intended to answer, okay? And finally, I would be happy to share with you a couple of tools that I put together. They're Kahoot quizzes, so I could send you links to them. One is a controlled substance quiz. And you know how Kahoot is. It's set up, you get so many seconds to answer the question and then move on. Well, this Kahoot quiz, it takes 75 questions. You got 5 seconds to answer each question. And what the question is simply the drug name. And the answers are scheduled 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So that way, you go through 75 drug names and quizzes you. I mean, it's 75 questions, not because I chose 75, it's 75, but that's how many drug names I found that I felt like were important for you to know. So What it does also is when it gives you 5 seconds, it forces you to look at it, make a decision. It forces you to know your gut reaction, just right off the bat. Oxycodone, schedule 2, you know it, let's move on, okay? There are also 2 state law review videos that are 60 to 70 questions. And these are questions that I have put together for my students, but they're obviously based off of Arkansas state law and controlled substance law reconciled. So it may be a measure of just another set of questions for you to review and see how well you do. So I'm happy to share those with you. Y'all are bright people. I know you can do this. What you need to do though is to do something different. And I'm encouraging that. I try to give you some tips on how to prepare differently. So that now you know the old saying, you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're trying to achieve a different response with the same process, that it's the same. So I know you guys are bright and you do it. And so test taking skills and ways to go back and look at things. You need to know the law, so you need to study it. I know it's unfortunate that you have to kind of stop and maybe go through this in an in-depth review now. But I encourage you that given that you're at this stage of taking it for the 3rd time, that you ultimately be prepared and just get it behind you and move on to it.
One thing I wanted to add on K types too, we should just let Robbie go first, Dr. Richmond go first. Okay, that was
Yeah, well,
But one thing I was gonna mention about the K-type questions too, is sometimes, like you've got 3 things. One of them, 2 of them may be alike and one of them may be different. So take notice of that too, like I'll just give you an example. Grocery store, gas station, police officer. Well, two of them places and one of them's a specific profession, right? So when you take those, sometimes you can pick out those nuances as well. I think the true false thing, that's how I do the K-type questions as well. But I'm also able to eliminate some because it just doesn't fit into the overall scenario.
So I think there's really a couple of questions at hand. I like to start by decision trees. Number 1, is the board willing to let another round of test happen?
Yes.
Number 2, sounds like Dr. Richmond has already offered to share with the group. So I can get our staff to do an email where we are on one together with our students to exchange that. Anything else you guys want us to do, staff? You must try to set a day if they want to come in and ask questions. I'm fine with doing that. I've done that before. I work with them on what their schedule looks like to do that.
I don't think it's fair to let them see the previous
The test,
test, just because that puts the people in Northwest Arkansas at a distinct disadvantage. And I just don't think that's fair.
Well, I don't think we're gonna set that first.
Correct, agreed.
Since I teach in the one small section of the law class, sometimes I'll offer for them to reach out to me, and I've actually had Zoom meetings and things with them, and over stuff. But I'd rather, if you're gonna set something up, I'm more than happy to come up and help with that, just to do it all at once.
So we can do it, I mean, if you guys want to come in person, we can do it by Zoom, whichever, or, if you're local and you want to come in person and the Post Northwest want to come via Zoom, I can handle that as well. So when is your semester begin?
I think we have a week in April, very last week. of
Okay.
April it's open.
I knew it was end of March, middle of April, something like that. What, and I can talk to you about this later, like, what is like the best day of the week for you guys? If we were going to spend a day review and like the following week have the test?
Honestly, I would be doing.
Okay. I knew like Friday afternoon was open, but Friday afternoon is a terrible day for a lot of people. It's the downtime for the weekend, but if that's the best time, we'll work with you guys on the best time. So we're here every day.
I don't know how many of us have electives on Tuesdays, but I have Tuesday mornings open and, Friday's always good. That's my work day, but I can always let them know.
Sure.
Well, these are not gonna be mandatory.
These are all people.
Try to do it at the best time that will accommodate the most number of people. that I would encourage you to try and make.
I hate to propose Friday as a permanent solution, since I don't.
No, that's-
know what y'all's schedule is like, but I think for most of us, Friday afternoon tends to be open. Without having a calendar, that's possible.
You know, you guys have to do.
When we get through
Dr.
this,
Hartley, is that just for just an additional type of review other than what you've done in the past?
well, I'm actually open to having an exchange if they have questions after they've been studying to see if they have a day that we want to set up and they can quiz me, basically. So, and I'm sure I'll involve other staff as well. If they have questions that they are worried about something or stumped on something or want clarification on something, that we would answer questions for.
I do think it's important they already study first, because you can't spoon feed them every single question and that type of thing. So they need to have a really good understanding of what they know and come in there, and then your help will, formalize that, what they need to do, what they need to look at.
I would hope, similar to what Dr. Richmond said, that, I mean, it's a voluntary exercise that I hope they take advantage of, but part of that's going to be, there are questions that even reciprocity, when they ask me, it's like, well, what do you think and why? And then try to talk them through the reasoning why that may or may not be correct. So it's not just a guess, it's a teaching moment.
Obviously, taking this exam is the first step towards the license. This is your Arkansas State law exam you have to take. So it's not just for APP, it's not just for having specific law, but it's to be a pharmacist in the state. So, and you can't do your APPs in the state without having passed. So it's high stakes, and it's becoming higher stakes because now this is your third exam. But I don't want to do is weed you out. I don't want to.
Yeah.
You get worse. If I promise you, if you study and if you go through and do the things we talked about, absolutely no reason why you should not be able to achieve passing.
So what's the best way to contact y'all? Just through email, phone call? Or?
I think that I will probably get an email going to all of you and copy Dr. Richmond on it, where that way he can respond with his offer of the Kahoot. And then that'll just start a thing of, I'll get reflection for you, like what day of the week and time would be best, and figure out, like, if it's Tuesday mornings are usually pretty easy for me to schedule. Friday afternoons, unless I'm taking off work, I'm usually here Friday afternoon as well. And what I would propose is if we set like a day, like have one week where that's the day that we sit down together, and if you've got questions or whatever, we can go through those questions and answer them and talk through it, which I think might be a good study tool. And then the following week after that, go ahead and have a test.
Well, I was meaning also individually for each of us, you said that we could also come and quiz you, or is that like in the group?
I was saying as a group, Dr. Jolly has offered before if individuals had specific questions to reach out to. But I think it's actually more beneficial if you do that as a group, because you'll hear each other's questions. Anytime I get a room full of, whether it's students or pharmacists, you got introverts and extroverts. The introverts might want to listen and just let the extroverts ask all the questions. But if it was a one-on-one thing, some of those people would not have reached out at all and wouldn't have gotten the benefit.
So we're gonna have the exam after the finals, or? I'm not sure exactly what it is or not. I think last week.
I can pull it up on my phone if that's.
So we don't have to do it right now. I mean, I think the board is fairly agnostic as to exactly when it happens, but you do have to do this before you start APPs.
And it's something important to consider is your experiential coordinator is having to set up your APPs in advance. So they're going to be hard. They don't know, they can't go ahead and schedule you yet. And then all of a sudden they're having to wait.
Well, they're scheduled, but we're trying to make it to where they don't have to alter the schedule.
Okay.
Because they start rotations May.
Yeah.
So we've got till May to get it. We can do that. They can do that.
I'm just thinking from a school perspective.
Sure.
It sounds like they do.
All right.
I have one more question.
Sure.
So during these, like individual or reviews that we're gonna be doing online or, you know, however it's may take place. Say for instance, some of us were already following, you know, some of these recommendations I was given. Can we like further elaborate on those, like with our questions
If
during
you,
our review?
well, what I would say is come in and I would probably do much like Dr. Richmond has done today. Talk to you about how your study is going, any questions you have for clarification. And if you guys pepper me, you've got 10 things that you're struggling with as a group or individually, you know, trying to talk through those. So I'm not trying to model it as me giving another full law review. I'm trying to model it as, you know, you've got access to that law review, you've seen a couple of tests, like what are the topics you feel like you're struggling with that we can help you get some clarity on?
In fact, I would encourage you to think of this as your opportunity to come ask questions for things that you don't understand. That don't make sense. So that way it's not us running a review, but rather we're here offering you support in answering your questions. So that as you think things through, okay, now I understand. But I would, it's to be much more importantly focused on you coming prepared to ask us questions.
And I would make those questions situational, right? So just like the test questions are gonna be, come in and say, okay, so if this happens, what do I do? What is the law?
I have a question. Can a gastroenterologist prescribe weight loss medications? And well, can they or not? What schedule is it? What authority do they have?
Well, that's Schedule 3. The answer is they are a physician, an MD.
Have an EDA number?
They have broad prescribing authority, as long as they have an EDA number. Now, there are state regulations that apply regarding how much they can prescribe, how many refills. What did I say?
No, you're good.
No, go ahead.
It didn't have anything to do with what you were talking about.
No, it had nothing to do with what you're talking about.
It's just a real example we could face as of recent.
I don't even know what I was saying. So, a gastroenterologist is an MD. Let me ask you this, optometrist, MD or not? Ophthalmologist, MD or not? Okay, so MDs have broad prescribing authority. If they have a DEA number, they can prescribe controlled substances, broad prescribing authority. Now, there may be questions about some things about scope of practice, but generally speaking, those two answers will apply. Now, in Arkansas, there are limitations on certain drug classes, or on that class of drugs as to how many times it can be refilled and what else has to happen. Those are MD questions, those are not pharmacy questions. I think it's important to understand this, but generally that would be the answer to your question.
That's all I've got. I know they've got you guys class. No, that's fine. That we schedule them all for 9 to see. That way we do have a call. Thank you guys for
Yes,
coming.
thanks for coming, good luck,
Well,
wish you the best.
So you guys can take a quick break so we can reset for here.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Mack will be right back and reset for hearings.
Okay.
See that? I was going through, let's do this stuff. I was like, All right. Dr. Matt, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm just gonna review real quick. So the rest of the morning, what we have scheduled, it is hearings based on our CE audit. For the board members, we have one person who's here today in person. We have some that have not shown up that we'll take care of after this. But I just want to be sure that both the board and for you, Mr. Garbarini, know that we have done what the board has instructed us to. We have offered a non-disciplinary order with a monetary penalty and CE makeup. You're aware of that, and the board is aware of that. What we've tried to advise is anyone who has not reached that agreement. We have how many licensed pharmacists in Arkansas now? 7,135 licensed pharmacists for the state of Arkansas. At the time of audit, I think it was about 6,900. We're down to 8 that we have issues on CE audit that are not in the group you approved yesterday, which was about a page, which we've done it. The other thing I just want to be sure that you guys know that has been explained to these pharmacists that at this point, if they do not enter the non-disciplinary agreement and go to a contested hearing, that any findings that the board makes are disciplinary at that point and are reported to the national data bank. Just want to be sure you guys both know that. So if you want to proceed with this hearing, they will start in, we will swear in witnesses and turn over to the hearing officer. Okay, there you
Go on the record. My name is Clayton Orr, and I'm the hearing officer today in the matter of Thomas Gavarini, case number 2022 CE 067 and license number PD 11016. This matter will be heard before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy. This hearing concerns matters specified in the order and notice of hearing. Please turn off all cell phones and place them in silent mode. Please identify yourself for the record, Mr. Governor.
Thomas Garbarini.
Are you represented by counsel?
No, sir.
And are you aware that you have the right to have counsel present?
Yes, sir.
And if at any time you do not understand the proceeding, please let me know. Did you receive a copy of the orders and notice of hearing concerning today's matter?
Yes.
And are you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
Board's counsel, please identify yourself for the record.
Ashley Bales, General Counsel for Arkansas Board of Pharmacy.
And are you ready to proceed?
I am ready.
For the benefit of anyone present today who may not have appeared in an administrative hearing, the board will base its decision solely on the evidence presented here today. This hearing is held pursuant to the Administrative Procedures Act, which means that the strict rules of evidence do not apply, and the parties will be given latitude in introducing evidence. This is to promote a fair hearing and to provide the board with adequate information to make a decision. The administrative adjudicatory process should be more expeditious and less expensive for all parties than a judicial proceeding. The hearing should be much less formal, consistent with the fundamentals of fairness, impartiality, and fairness. My goal is to develop a fair, accurate, and intelligible record that can be reviewed. And to that end, please do speak up for the sake of our court reporter. And likewise, don't speak over each other or interrupt each other. To ensure efficiency of the proceeding, I will grant objections or caution the parties only as necessary. If there is anything that you have in your possession that you want the board to consider, you must offer it into evidence today. All participants in the hearing should be aware that these proceedings are subject to the Freedom of Information Act, and as such, all parts of the hearing, including the deliberations of the board, are open to the public. Additionally, this proceeding must be recorded in a manner that allows for the capture of sound.
Board that all board members are present.
All board members are present except Amy 4. Okay. For those of you who are or may be witnesses today in this matter, please raise your right hand to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And are there any preliminary matters to discuss or offer at this time?
I have a few. I would ask that my exhibits 1 through 7 be admitted into evidence in this matter.
No objection is so admitted as board exhibits 1 through 7. The exhibits may be published to the board.
In addition, I've asked the board to take judicial notice of Arkansas's applicable statutory law and Arkansas Pharmacy Board of Regulations in this matter, specifically Rule 0206-003 B2, which governs the requirements for continuing education for licensed pharmacists.
And Mr. Gabarity, do you have any exhibits today?
No, sir.
Okay. Do either of you wish to make an opening statement?
I'll wait.
Okay. Board counsel, call your first witness.
Call Dr. Brenda McCready. Dr. McCready, can you identify for the board what's contained in exhibit number 1?
Exhibit number 1 is the order notice of hearing regarding the hearing today.
What are the allegations with regard to Mr. Barberini?
Allegation 3, respondent failed to require the required number of continuing education hours in order to renew his or her pharmacist license for 2022. However, the board had renewed said license. Allegation 4, respondent failed to get 9.5 hours of live continuing education of the 12 live continuing education hours as required by the Arkansas State Regulation 02060003 B2.
Thank you, and can you refer to exhibit number 6?
Exhibit number 6.
Tell the board what that.
This is a document that shows the hours that the pharmacist attested to when they renewed their license. And if you will notice on the 3rd line down, Dr. Barberini did attest to the fact that he had 30 hours of continuing education.
But on his audit, he did not in fact have 30 hours, correct?
He had a total of I don't have his total here. I showed him a short 9.5 live hours. And he actually had, if you look under exhibit number 4, the CPE transcript showed he had 2.5 live and 24.58 home hours for a total of 27.08.
And have you had any correspondence with Mr. Barberini regarding this issue?
I have under tab number 5, there is a chain of emails there between Dr. Barberini and I.
Summarize what the context of those are.
Basically, the last correspondence we had was that he would formally state that he is not willing to sign the consent agreement as proposed. He obtained required hours, additional hours, which he has at this point gotten the additional hours required, but is unable to pay the substantial monetary penalty. Previously, on July 26th of 2022, there's a conversation there regarding the stipulations in the consent agreement, when they're due, if there's any time for extension. He, on a previous email on that same day, had some discussion about the amount of the fine, and I explained to him that staff does not have the ability to change the requirements that are set by the board. That we are given direction by the board to offer $100 per hour plus twice the amount of continuing education, which is what was offered. Based on the following conversations, we scheduled him for here.
Thank you. More questions for Dr. McCready?
Mr. Barberini, do you have any questions for Dr. McCready?
So I didn't know how this was gonna go. I don't know. But can you give me, I don't know when is appropriate to say anything as far as like what.
If you'd like to, you can ask questions of Dr. McCready at this point, or if you'd like to just make a statement, or you can do that as well.
So I guess in communication with Ms. Craig, she recommended that I come here to state my case. I'm not denying that I didn't get the
required CEs, that's obvious. Messed up, I don't know how, I'm not gonna sit here and make excuses, but it was just to try to get some leniency on the fine. I tried to look up the $100 per CE requirement in the statutes, and I couldn't find it. I guess that would be my question, is where that's at. Other than that, the only reason I'm here is to ask for leniency on the fine portion. As she stated, I did get the required CEs, twice the amount of CEs required. I'm not here denying any of this at all.
Questions from the board, council?
Mr. Gregory, looking through the emails that you and Dr. McCready exchanged regarding this issue, is it a fair statement to say that Dr. McCready told you if you did not sign a consent agreement, if you wish not to sign a consent agreement, you would have to appear before the board? Did she recommend that you come here, or did she give you that option after you didn't want to sign a consent agreement?
I can't remember the exact conversation.
And when you reviewed the law, you said you looked at the statute. Did you review the part of the statute that says the board has authority to fine up to $1,000?
No.
For violation, you didn't see that law. I have no more questions, Mr. Gregory.
Questions from the board?
I've got an obvious question. Why did you not want to pay your bill?
Again, it's a substantial amount. For some personal reasons, I have a substantial debt. I don't care to go into that or bring that out in public, but it's a substantial amount to me.
How much is your penalty?
It's almost $1,000.
And who's fault is that?
It's mine.
Oh, what's wrong with this? Getting up and moving on with your life. That's it's costing you to come here today and not working.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do?
I don't know, whatever the board decides.
How you doing?
I can't do it.
Are you practicing pharmacy now? You wanna work?
I'm at retirement age. It's what it is.
So you're willing to give your license up to $900?
Family. I have a personal, I have a substantial debt that I have to pay. I'll just leave it at that.
Question for how many pharmacists that
We started out with, we sent out 425 orders. We got down to about 216 that had to do consent agreements. We're down to 8 that have not signed the consent agreements and paid their fines.
So over 200.
Out of almost 7,000 pharmacists.
Dr. Matt?
If this is appropriate to ask at this time, but doesn't the board allow some time to pay? It doesn't have to be paid immediately, or how does that work, Dr. McCready?
We have done that in the past. We just approved the consent order this week that we allow pharmacists some time, 6 to 8 months to pay that penalty. I don't have the authority to do that, and that's why I don't make that offer when I do the consent agreements. That has to come before the board, but we have allowed them to make the payments or pay it all at one time in like 6 months or 7 months later.
What is, I have a question. what is your plan for paying off this substantial debt if you don't have a pharmacist license?
Retirement pay, I guess.
So retirement pay would not pay your fine for the CDE as well?
I would be retired, then I wouldn't need a license, I guess.
So really, it really doesn't matter to you one way or the other.
I mean, I came here to ask for a reprieve, but I don't do that.
Sure. Thank you. I just was wondering.
I think the difficult part for us is providing an exception where we're 200 other pharmacists that have to do the same thing.
I understand.
I understand that there's challenges sometimes to pay these sorts of things. I mean, I feel like, and I don't know your situation, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but, you know, as pharmacists, you know, we can pick up side jobs, PRN work, to help pay that off. So I don't want our deliberations yet, but, you know, I respect the request, but with 208 other pharmacists having to pay fines, it's difficult to justify an exception. I do think if there was a time frame, would that help?
I think I have to think about it.
I just want to say, he was originally given the option to pay the $950. It looks like on July 25th of last year. So he's had a substantial amount of
But in the past, have we done something similar to maybe what you do with a core fine, where you pay?
Well, we don't do a monthly payment or anything, because we're not set up to take payments like that. But we have said, okay, we're gonna give you 6 months to gather up your funds to pay this. We've only done it a couple of times, both times that we did it, that I remember, it has been that paid it. It allows their license to stay intact. Previously, if they don't, like you said, if they don't meet this requirement, the board revokes their license. So now you have a revocation on a career that you've had all these years. And it's,
I think what I'm hearing is if we don't come to some type of agreement, the option is to go with the license. Do you mind me asking where you employed now?
Federal prison. Work with public health service. At the federal prison.
And I'm not as familiar with that. You work as a pharmacist?
Yes.
In that system? Yes.
Are you licensed anywhere else other than Arkansas?
Yes.
Is it current?
Yes.
And at a federal facility, you're simply required to have a license somewhere, is that not correct?
Yes.
So you don't need the Arkansas license?
No, sir.
Do you have a license elsewhere?
Yes.
So Dr. Richmond, would that mean he could go inactive with Arkansas and still work? Or I'm not sure.
Can I recall Dr. McCready? Dr. McCready, what is the effect on his license if we do not reach some sort of agreement?
if we don't reach an agreement and the board revokes his license, we will report that to the national data bank, which will then in turn be reported to wherever he's licensed. In some states, they take reciprocal action. In some states, they don't. I don't know where he's licensed, so I can't tell you what that state historically has done. But it's possible that revoking his license has a snowball effect to other licenses. The reason we don't let them go inactive at this point, they have that opportunity when they renew. They know when they renew whether they have their hours or not. He's had an active license in the state of Arkansas from January 1 of 2021 until today. He's practiced on that license. And so, I mean, at this point, it's hard to roll it backwards and go inactive when he's actually had an active license because he attested that he met the continuing education requirements.
Follow-up questions, Mr. Doherty?
Oh, I'm sorry. I've had Arkansas license longer than 21.
No, I'm just meaning this renewal period. Oh, sorry. Yes, sir. Yes, he has had a license longer than this.
Follow-up questions of the board?
I have a question with Dr. McCray. Is it possible at this time for Mr. McCray to surrender his license voluntarily? And if so, what would be the effect on the board?
At this point, he's in a contested hearing. I don't believe it's possible. That might be a question for the attorney to surrender his license. As I said, he's had an active license. He attested to the fact that he had his hours, and he's had that license now for a year and a half, when he in fact was not in compliance.
Just so the full understanding what the ramifications are, so regardless, there's going to be an action, unless he agrees and pays, there's going to be an action against his license, we would revoke his license. The ramifications of that is it gets reported to someone else, they might or might not take action.
That's correct.
Now, it's already been established that he owes the Board of Pharmacy $950. Would there be continued efforts at collecting that $950? Is it going to be referred out for collection?
That would be up to the CFO and the attorney.
So maybe.
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
Further question?
What other states are you licensed in?
Can I answer? I feel, sorry.
Please answer the question.
I just, so I have a question, follow-up question for Mr. Simpson.
Mr. Simpson is testifying, so please answer Dr. Mitchell's question.
Okay, that's Connecticut.
Mr. Small?
It's Connecticut.
Connecticut, okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, if you'd like to ask Dr. McCray a
So,
question.
it was asked that if my license could be, surrendered. But you said that it's, now that it's contested, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who I'm supposed to ask, but, if it could have been surrendered before it was contested, but I wasn't given that option.
At this point, the pharmacists that we have that have gone to an inactive status on their license have done that by paying the fine and refusing to do the CE. But any pharmacist that we've had in this group that says, I'm not going forward, I'm not getting the CE, I'm not signing the agreement, we've said in order to not have a hearing, you have to pay the fine. The fine is what the fine is for not meeting the requirements of your license. And everybody that we've discussed that with has paid the fine and gone inactive on their license. The email that you sent to me says, Brenda, as per our conversation, I wish to formally state that I am not willing to sign the consent agreement as it is proposed. As discussed, I have obtained the required additional hours, but am unable to pay the substantial monetary penalty. Dr. Garbarini, thank you for contacting the board. The board will hear these cases at our February board meeting. You will receive an order and notice of hearing from our attorney in January. Thank you, Brenda. So at this point on November 21st, you officially said, I'm not doing that. And therefore we scheduled the hearing.
Further questions? Further questions from the board?
So you have practiced pharmacy in Arkansas since January, correct?
Yes, sir. This year? Yes, sir.
Board counsel? Further questions?
No further questions.
Board? What other, make a closing statement?
I'll make a brief closing statement. I just don't feel there's been presented compelling reason to make an exception for Mr. Gregory. There's other pharmacists that failed to get their CAP, but then rectified the situation. And we've worked with them, and we're willing to work with Mr. Gregory. I just don't feel the board should make an exception for him based on what's been presented today.
Would you like to make a closing statement, Dr. Gregory? Yes.
Am I understanding you say that even if you decided to pay tonight, that you are not capable of doing so? That there's something that can keep you from actually having the ability if you decide?
I don't know, sir. I just received a notification of a substantial debt that I'm being forced to pay, so.
So you're choosing, so what you're doing is you're choosing to pay that debt rather than to pay this debt.
It's from the government, so I don't have a choice.
When did you receive that notice?
I don't recall.
This year, was it last year?
It's from last year.
That's when you received it?
Yes.
Is there a lien on your assets that legally prevents you from paying pharmacy?
A lien on the assets? No, sir, I don't think so.
So basically, you not paying is your decision not to pay it and rather than pay something else.
I guess, yes.
I really want to make this clear, but I'm confused about this. Are you compelled to pay the other debt in exclusion of pharmacy?
I don't know what kind of payment plan I'm gonna be allowed to pay on the other one, so I can't give you any information of how much I could pay here or there.
What I'm getting at, has the government done something where they came in and seized your assets?
Not yet.
So even if you want, so again, it's your choice to pay one supposed to be up.
Yeah, I will follow, of course. So you haven't had to pay on this other debt. Correct. And Dr. McCready, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't this issue really go back to January 1, 2020?
This issue goes back, the renewal was January.
The biennium that we're.
It ended December 31 of 2021.
And then he renewed.
He renewed. And I sent letters out starting in July.
So if.
Oh, I'm sorry, I actually sent him this first letter in April.
April. So 9 months ago was when you got your first notification from the board. And you're telling us today that it's this other debt that's going to prevent you from paying. But you've had all that time before to try to get this straightened out. So why did you not try to get this cleared up between April when you were first notified and today?
I don't remember if in April, I think she said that they were going to send out, she sent me the notice, but didn't send out the, I don't know what you call it, the official.
Consent agreement.
Thank you. Which stipulated all the requirements of the CEs and the fine.
When Dr. McCready, when you first been notified of the need for the fine, try to
I sent him a letter on April 13, 2022, asking him saying that he had indicated that he had 30 hours when he renewed. He signed a document that says I cannot leave, I do not have those hours. And I told him that I needed any documentation he had before June 1st. A conversation started July 25th. I sent him a note that said, based on the recent audit, this is July 25th, 2022, based on the recent audit conducted by the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy and your continuing education documentation, you are short the required number of hours for the 2020-2021 biennium. To rectify this violation, attached is a non-disciplinary consent agreement which indicates the number of hours short. You will be required to make up twice the number and type of hours short, as well as $100 penalty per hour. Please review this document, sign it, and return to the board no later than September 30th, 2022. Once the board receives your signed non-disciplinary consent agreement, proof of continuing education, and fine payment, we will consider this matter closed. If you have any questions, please email me, sincerely, Bernie Craig. And then he emailed back and said he felt like the fine was too high, that he'd been a licensed in good standing for 15 years, that he felt like we were only giving him 2 months to meet the hours. He does have hours at this point. He felt, it says, in regards to the monetary penalty, I feel that this is an arbitrary and excessive penalty. I did not locate any mention of monetary requirements in the regulations section 0206, continuing education for pharmacists. This is roughly 9 times the licensure renewal fee. I would think that half that amount, $50 per hour, would be sufficient to effectuate the disciplinary action, as it is not expressly stated in the regulations. I respectfully requesting a reduction in the penalty. And that's when I told him that staff did not have the authority to reduce it.
Follow-up questions, Dr. Gregory?
No.
Follow-up questions? Anything further, council? Dr. Gregory, anything further?
No, sir.
At this time, we will go off the record for the board's recess, or for the board's deliberations and decision regarding the findings of facts, conclusions of law, or any other penalties to be handed down. Once the board reaches a decision, we will go back on the record. The deliberations are open to the public under the Freedom of Information Act. All parties may remain and observe the deliberations. Go off the record. Well,
That's a hot mess. But when you look at license, there's a.
Well, I'm not sure that's true.
But it's still.
It seems to me that the potential outcomes are either he agrees to pay the fine and move on, or he doesn't agree to pay the fine and take action against his license. If action is taken against his license, it will be reported to other states and to the national paper. So he runs the risk of that having a negative impact on his Connecticut license. Regardless, he would still have a live Connecticut license. He's practicing in a federal facility. So arguably, he has not been practicing in Arkansas, he's been practicing in a federal facility, for which he just simply needs to have a license somewhere in the United States. And there may or may not be efforts taken by the Board of Pharmacy to collect on that $950 debt. We don't know one way or the other. So that's a potential. It may potentially have to, if somebody come after him. 2, is action taken on his license here in Arkansas that gets reported on, may have downstream effect. But 3, he still has an active license that allows him to practice pharmacy in a federal facility or in Connecticut.
For what it's worth, I have not seen that for the.
Becca, can you speak up a little bit, please?
So for what it's worth, I've not seen the Connecticut board be overly
aggressive in terms of reciprocal action. I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know what they're gonna do, but they're not a frequent flyer on my radar as that being super hard risk.
Well, I've been licensed in Connecticut as well. I would concur that they're fairly liberal.
Well, and to that getting further licenses, so.
Sure, but it doesn't sound like that's something he's pursuing.
I think ultimately that the burden of that risk is on him. So it's, as far as I understand.
I see this as a choice we make.
Yeah.
It's not our choice, it's not our own.
Right.
I would be willing to offer on our time.
Same.
I was thinking till July 25th of this year, so it's not a full year. Is that
I was
fair?
thinking a little bit less than that, but, so Dr. Gray wants to say something, so we have to go back on the record and do that.
What were you suggesting, please?
I'm sorry, Dr. Mack, providing if he agreed to pay the fine today, in good faith, and then providing a due date of some sort, that would be due. I would be willing, I was just saying, I'd be willing to offer that today. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I just think we need to be careful too. If this was all, it was really back from 2021. And we want to, if we give too long, that's another additional length of time that he can practice on this license. So I think we give some time. I just think we be careful how much time.
Well, I think it's important, there's two things we talk about. One is completing the required CE, that's what protects the public.
I think he's done, I think that's.
And he's done that, yeah. That's the critically important part. The rest of it is just fine. Monetary fine.
It may be something where in a month or whatever time, if you agree on that, those license stays active until such and such date, or that receive a check for the amount of such and such date. So,
But if we're going to make an exception, the exception is going to have to be done by clearly defined terms, so we're not creating a precedent that's going to apply to everybody else in the future.
I don't think we're
Yeah,
talking about making an exception. We're either
Well,
saying it's gonna pay it or.
I think even doing more time to pay. And I have not heard anything that would justify an exception. Yeah, I see he's deciding to pay some bills and not others. That's a choice.
But it doesn't mean we can't show action.
well, and then how do you pay the other bills?
I would say,
We don't know the situation.
Yeah.
Now, what we're saying is, you gotta get your CD. We're giving him the option to pay or not pay. If he chooses not to, then that's his choice. And he accepts the ramifications, and that's not inconsistent with what has been offered to everybody else. The only thing we're saying is, okay, in this individual situation, we're offering some extended period of time, but it's not the next 2 years, it's the next renewal.
I think what we don't want to do, to your point, is open the door for anyone that has a shortage of CE, go ahead and string it out to come to a formal hearing, just to get to the same conclusion that currently is being taken care of way further ahead of time. So just throwing this out, is the discussion need to be whether this be non-punitive, does it need to be disciplined?
This is going to be disciplined, but they were told that if they came to
So
the
if
hearing.
Harold, I think that gives me a little bit more comfort from setting a precedent. Maybe we don't want it, because if I was short my hours and I knew about this and I said, well, I'm gonna pay now, I'm just gonna string it out because I'm gonna get 16, 18 more months out of it. No, I'm then gonna take disciplinary action on my license. And that does become, it's a license sponsor, so.
Dr. Kraus, I think your council would like to go back on the record.
Yes.
Let's go back on the record. Board council.
I'd like to call Dr. McCready again for some clarification about the time frame to start payments. Dr. McCready, what would the board staff's recommendation be if the board allowed Mr. McCready to make a payment or delay his payment on this? When would we need?
Again, the board can't take monthly payments or anything like that, but the board could actually set the parameters of the findings of fact that he has until June 15th. The fiscal year is up July 1st. We normally want everything in by the 15th so that it can be posted into the fiscal year. So we normally ask that everything be in by June 15th. And at that point, if it's not paid, his license will be revoked. I mean, that's what we have done. We have done this in the past. This is not, we're not setting the precedent. We have done this in the past. We did it with the previous case that we took this, considering this week, and we gave her time to pay or in lieu of revocation. If she paid it by that time, the license was not revoked.
Dr. Green, do you have any further questions for board counsel?
And I will tell you that Connecticut does require live CE. They require 5 hours every year. And I don't know whether you met your CE requirements in Connecticut or not. I'm not going to ask you that, but I show in the biennium 2 years from 1/1 of 2020 to 12/31 of 2021, we had 2.5 hours of live CE.
Further questions from the board?
That's a nine.
Wait.
Sorry, Dr. Mann. Dr. Mann, sorry.
And Dr. McCready, this would be discipline because it's already come to a contested hearing, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
One follow-up question is related to that. If we give him until June 15th and he decides not to pay and the license is revoked, is it still a disciplinary, revocation?
It is, and you could actually put the license on probation until that time if you wanted to, so that, that way there's a file there that this is a disciplinary action. Requirements.
Before we go back off the record, can we ask if, given the options to have until June 15th to pay, is that something you would, in good faith, agree to?
That's 5 months. I should probably do that.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Let's assume we put his license on probation today, the extra time today. And he doesn't do it, and his license is then revoked. Is he then entitled to another hearing? Regarding that revocation, or is that going back to this action?
Following this action.
Anything else? Dr. Green?
No, sir.
For counsel?
Back off the record.
We can go back off the record.
Okay, that's.
Yeah, and I think that's like Dr. Easton pointed out. I think he's got to see requirements so far. What's the best thing to remain in practice in the educational sector? Unfortunately, I'm decided because this has become what it's become. This is still an option for him to maintain his Arkansas license. Very good question. So sounds like we're all.
Yeah, so just probation until June 15th or until we get there.
Well, can we go ahead and just talk about what the vote motion?
Yeah.
Councilor.
Or do we put in a motion that we're gonna vote? I don't even know if we can do this. Before we actually get that. So we don't have to call an emergency period to vote on June 16th.
No, it'll be in this motion.
That would just become an administrator.
Yeah, that's an administrative device for this.
So it would be, we vote for his license on probation. That he be granted until June 15th, 2023, pay the full debt, and if not received, on that, then his license.
And if we get before June 15th, then his license is the probationary status.
probably want to go back on record and want to ask all the questions. Ask if she has any other, more insight. So.
Go back on the record, just for a minute. Oh, I'm sorry.
Place the license on probation.
Until June 15th.
Until he pays.
Or until he pays.
No later.
No later than June 15th.
No later than June 15th. Will be disciplinary.
No choice.
The probation will be removed once he's paid the fine in full or revoked.
If not, yeah.
Let's go back on the record for a question.
Dr. McCray, I guess my question would be, would there be any other insight into this motion that more staff could provide us with?
In the past, the board has charged investigative costs, but the board does have the option based on the circumstances of this case and taking each case on its own to waive those. I think if the board wants to, staff doesn't have the ability to do that. But we have had those in the past that it's up to the board and what they will do as well as that.
I would go back off.
Yeah, so go back off.
Board counsel, do you have any further questions, Dr. Dropper?
What is an investigative? What did you say? Investigative?
Investigative cost is the time that the board and staff have put into investigating this case. In the past, the board has put an investigative fee on there. But like I said, they do have the ability to waive that on a case-by-case basis.
Good question. Let's go back on the record.
I'm okay. Circumstance. I'd be okay with the investigative costs and just stick.
Yeah. Ready to go back on? We're ready.
We'll now go back on the record for the board's decision.
Okay.
All right, do we have a motion?
Part of that motion.
All right.
So in the matter of Thomas Carverini, PD 11016, case number 2022067. Board finds that allegations 1 through 4 are true. Charges 1 and 2 are proven. Our motion is to offer Dr. Garbarini the opportunity to pay a $950 disciplinary fine by June the 15th. In place of 2022. 2023. That replaces current license in a probationary status. That he has until June the 15th to pay said disciplinary fine. After which, if not paid in full by that day, his license will be revoked with disciplinary action.
And the full payment of his probation status is removed.
And upon full payment, the probationary status will be removed. This is still disciplinary action on his license.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or conversations by the board? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Please let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous. Please reduce the board decision to writing and make or attempt service upon all parties. The respondent cares to appeal the decision. Appeal can be taken under any specific provision relating to this board or under the Arkansas Administrative Procedures Act found in Arkansas Code annotated 2515-201 et seq. There are no other questions or comments. This hearing is concluded and the record is closed.
I would just like to make a comment. Dr. Garbarini, I think that there's a good number of us who are not even compassionate, that we don't need to know your situation. You told us, and so we recognize. Unfortunately, we have to follow what our typical actions are, otherwise we set precedent, and especially for those folks who've already gone before the agreement. So we have applied leniency where possible, but we've also had to apply what our standards are. Just wondering that.
I just want to add one thing and just say thank you for your service.
That's right.
Hearing is concluded and the record is closed. Yes, sir.
Will, Dr. McCready or someone email me or email me something that,
I'll send you what the board has decided in writing.
I mean, as far as sending in money, the directions to
Yeah, that'd be.
instructions.
She'll put them in
Thank you.
We call the whole-
Me too. So, it's bullshit. There. They load head that way.
Who's that person? I'll call Paul.
Just call all of them. And then we'll send it on the record.
Weird as I'm football.
Well, I need to cut that off. We're not seeing anything. That's yours. Done? Sure.
We have,
Somebody do a quick road trip. We didn't just get there.
there's no one else in the hallway. We have no one else via Zoom trying to join us either.
Okay, so we'll have 6 that are in the stage that will need to do.
What she said.
We have 6 that aren't here, we need to go to the extension, same issue, CE.
I guess it's not allowed for us to make one motion for all.
Well, no, you have to have a record for each one because if they want to appeal the board, it's an individual. We've already tried to reach an informal agreement and some just have never responded to anything.
So we'll be very, very quick.
Yeah.
Or can we take a break?
Yep.
We're correspondence.
Okay.
Dr. Mack, we'll be right back.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Dr. Mack, we're coming back.
Okay, I'm here.
I think we've got about 7 that are not here that, Ms. Bales and Dr. McCray are just gonna go through one at a time. So who's on first?
I'd like to do Lisa Gill.
All right, let's go on the record. My name is Clayton Nora. I'm the hearing officer today in the matter of Lisa Gill, case number 2022 CE 009B, license number PD 12284. This matter will be heard before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy, and it concerns matters specified in the order and notice of hearing. I'll note that Dr. Gill is not present. Dr. Kirtley, will you sound the hall?
We sound.
We sound it for everyone else, but we have no one else out there.
Okay. And let the record reflect that Dr. Gill is not present. Board counsel, will you identify yourself for the record?
Yes, Ashley Bales, General Counsel for Arkansas Board of Pharmacy.
Are you ready to proceed on this matter?
I am.
And do you have any exhibits?
I do. I've moved to admit exhibits 1 through 4 in this matter.
There are no objections. The exhibits will be admitted as numbers 1 through 4.
And I ask that the board take judicial notice of applicable Arkansas statutory law and Arkansas Pharmacy Board regulations, specifically Rule 0206-003B2.
And would all witnesses please raise their right hand this morning? You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. And counsel, call your first witness.
Call Dr. Brenda McCready. Dr. McCready, can you identify for the board exhibit number 1?
It is the order of notice of hearing for today's hearing.
And exhibit number 2?
It is the proof of service for the respondent.
And does proof of service reflect that this was delivered on February 8th, 2023?
It does.
If you'll go back to the order of notice of hearing. Can you tell the board what the allegations are in this matter?
Lisa Gill, pharmacist PD 12284, failed to acquire the required numbers of continuing education hours in order to renew her pharmacist license for 2022. However, the board has renewed such license. The respondent failed to get 8.75 live hours and 5.5 home study hours of the 30 hours of continuing education as required by board regulation 0206-0003B2.
And is the evidence supporting the lack of those hours reflected in the CB monitor transcript?
Yes.
Anything else you'd like to add with regard to Ms. Gill that we've not gone over?
Ms. Gill did attest to the fact that she had 30 hours when she renewed her license.
Or not, Dr. McCready?
Questions from the board?
I have a question. Do we know where this pharmacist is currently working?
I checked on the GL Suite website today, and she does not have a place of employment list.
What was that, Dr. McCready? You checked today and what?
I checked today to see if she was employed anywhere. She does not have a place of employment listed on our licensing database.
If I missed it, I apologize. What was the amount that was offered?
$1,425. I believe that. Yes, she was short 8.75 and 5.5 for a total of 14.25. It would be $1,425.
Plus the requirement of the city.
Plus the city, that's what was offered, yes.
She hasn't completed any.
She has not responded to a single email, phone call, text, anything that we have sent to the board.
I have a general question. There's a 2-year licensure period that ended January 1 of this year.
It ends every 2 years. This biennium ended on 12/31/2021. So these hours are from 2020 and 2021. We are currently in the 2022-2023 line.
And their license today is current because you automatically renew until we have the hearing like this today.
Yes, sir.
Wait,
Well,
It renews, it renewed in December of 2021. She went into the database, logged in, paid her fee, attested that she had her hours, and the system automatically sends her license. Then in April, when we have a late fee period, so we don't even look for CE until April. In April, we do a 100% audit of all pharmacies. We take what they've entered into CPE Monitor, what they've renewed on INA, which is our renewal base, and we match those. And anybody that kicks out without their live hours, will kick out. If they don't have 30 hours, they'll kick out. Then I send them a letter. It says, on renewal, you said you had 30 hours. We're only showing that you have 15.25. Please provide me with the additional documentation because some hours are not ACPE accredited, so they're not in that database. So they have 30 days or so to send me all their documentation. I go through all the documentation, show what hours they have. In a couple of cases, people will say, well, they're not showing this, or I got these hours from such and such, and I have contacted the people that provide the CE and said, hey, we have a pharmacist that says they got these hours, but they're not showing up anywhere, which is above what I have to do. But I do try to help them make sure they have their hours. And they will come back and say, oh, we missed that, or they were never registered, whatever the case may be. So we try to work through whatever issues to help them meet their requirements. And then after that, we'll send out a second request if they don't respond. And then we send a consent agreement, which is the agreement that you're going to pay $100 an hour and meet twice the hours. We send that twice before we ever send a board notice of hearing. And I've contacted these people by email and by telephone. I mean, we've gone above and beyond to contact these people.
So for this person, we're concerned with the CE two-year period ending at the end of 21. And we've not done anything with regard to CE requirements subsequent to that period.
We don't do that until, we'll do that in April of 2024. We'll go back and look at the hours they had in 2022 and 2023. However, when on every one of these people, I've gone into the NABP database and looked to see if they have CE hours currently for this year, to see if they're at least attempting to make up the hours that they're supposed to be making up, because the hours they make up don't count towards their next renewal. So those are in addition to their hours that are required every year, for every 2 years.
Other questions? Dr. Richard? Under allegation 4, maybe you should just know the best way to word it, but I mean, we don't actually have home study requirements, so I mean, is it basically?
Maybe it should say non-live.
Okay,
Home study comes from, if you will look at the CPE monitor transcript on page exhibit 3, when CPE puts it in, they put it under live and home hours, and that's where that came from. But non-live might be a better term.
Yeah, because I mean, they could get, well, yes, okay, that answers my question.
I guess we try to differentiate the two because it's a lot of people think it's easier to get non-live or home study or office study or whatever it is versus live. Although now live CE is readily available everywhere. And so we separate the hours out because when they make up, she has to make up live and non-live. So we just differentiate that.
Closing statement, Council.
No, I'll just ask the board to take disciplinary action against Ms. Gill for her failure to follow the requirements of pharmacy rules regarding continuing education, ask for appropriate investigative costs for Dr. McCready's extensive time researching this issue.
At this time, we'll go off the record for the board's deliberations and a decision regarding the findings of facts, conclusions of law, or any penalties to be handed down. Once the board reaches a decision, we will go back on the record. The deliberations are open to the public under the Freedom of Information Act. All parties may remain and observe the deliberations. Crawford.
Question I was gonna have, probably should have been on the record.
Let's go back on the record. Question from Dr. Richard.
Since we're considering investigative costs, what is a reasonable amount for these cases of investigative costs?
We have in the past done $375.
How much?
$375. And I think I'd like to add that most of the people you're going to see from this point on have never contacted the board at all. And the difference in this case and the last case is, you know, he was here, he showed up, he did have some interaction with the board. Most of, like, this respondent has had no contact. And I double checked that this morning. I came in and looked at my emails again this morning just to make sure that there was nothing there.
Board counsel.
Question before we go off the record.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, are we recommending revoking the license? I couldn't tell exactly what our attorney recommended.
I didn't have a specific recommendation, but I feel it's appropriate to consider that at least.
Question from Mr. Simpson.
I'm afraid, were we to take an action that included imposing a fine or cost, my understanding is that we can then take that order to circuit court and receive an actual legal judgment on that matter. Is that correct?
Well, we can do that, yes.
You ordinarily do that.
I don't think so. We've not done it as long as I've been here. I've been here 11, almost 12 years, and I have not seen us do that.
You know, I would think that if you did that, that judgment could of course be discharged in bankruptcy. But otherwise, it would appear on the person's record and put us in line for.
I will tell you that I can only remember a couple of cases where we find somebody, Dr. Kirby would probably testify more clearly to that because he's been here longer, or our CFO, that we actually had to write off a fine. We have had a couple, we have had some, but not very many.
Question? Yes, based on precedent, would you say that in the past, have they just revoked the license, or was the license suspended until they paid for that, for the current licensure biennium or whatever? What's the gentleman done, I guess?
In the past, when we've had people show up to the hearing, we've found them to owe the fine, have disciplinary calls. Those have been paid. The board does have the option to fine and revoke, or fine or revoke, whichever the board chooses to do.
Any other questions for Dr. McCready before we go off the record?
Well, probably more for council.
Or council?
I mean, action we take will be effective as of today.
Yes.
Unless we stay no.
Well,
With the
yes,
board.
your action would be effective today. There's a course of action that needs to take place in the future as a, then yes, but your course of
I guess
action.
I'd be asking, what is the board staff requested that we sent, given that nobody showed up? Well, I don't know if there's a point in continuing things further. So would it be that as of today, we assess a fine, including the investigative costs and both the license today?
Yes, that is an option, yes.
All right.
Anything further from the board? Board counsel? Go off the record.
So what do you think? We'll go this way.
I think that I think about the story of Public City and Creek Union, and the fellow asked for a demonstration, so we got student forum and get the deal. And I said, that's an odd way to show up, we have trying to do it. He said, well, you have to get their teaching first. I think it's clear that we have not gotten the attention of people that were able to prove this particular thing. And I think that it wouldn't be fair to the other people who we have the attention of, arguing with the I think it's up to us to enforce the rules. So I would be afraid of both revocation and fine and costs. And I, for one, would probably go so far as to register this order as a judgment. So we can actually have.
Dr. Kraus, could you kind of sum that up, please?
Yeah, say it louder, you couldn't hear it.
No.
I'm in favor for these cases where people don't show, don't make contact, don't make any effort to do suspension, fine, administrative costs, and I would perhaps, although I'm not sure I understand fully the ramifications of it, I would register the judgment from the circuit court so as to have the legal record made of that for collection.
Just to play devil's advocate, I don't know that I feel like we're ever gonna get this money out, and I don't know that it's
It would follow forever.
sure, but I think our charge is not to fund the board of pharmacy, right? We heard financials Tuesday, we're not in dire straits. I think our biggest concern is that we stop these people from practicing if they are a danger to the public because they're refusing to get their continuing education and they're showing a blatant disregard for any and all communications from the board. Right, so, to me, levying the disciplinary fine and including the investigative costs and revoking their license is sufficient. I don't feel super strongly that we need to try to go after them in a way to make sure that we get our money.
Well, it's not just that we be sure we get our money, but it's also, it says, if they have to pay, they're gonna get their CE. You know, it's not like they're just gonna pay, and they're scot-free, it's like CE.
Sure, sure.
And we have to be fair, the other 200 people paid.
Say that again, Debbie, I'm sorry.
Well, we have to be fair, the other 200 people had to pay, and you can't come down to the 11th hour and just not work. I'm not sure.
No, I'm for levying the fine as a disciplinary action. I'm for revoking their license. I do not feel as strongly about the need to go register that judgment in circuit court to make sure that we are in line to get paid if they file for bankruptcy or something like that, or if they're deceased and their estate is in probate, right? Like, I don't feel very strongly that is something we need to do, but the fine, the revocation, the administrative costs, all of that, I do feel strongly that we need to stick to precedent. It's only fair, right?
Right.
The only part I don't feel like we should necessarily do is register the judgment in circuit court, just because my primary concern is that they're not practicing.
And I guess we could.
Sure, yeah.
I basically agree with that. I'm uncertain as to the register and circuit court.
Yeah, that was like a new idea, and so I had to kind of think through it out loud. I wouldn't necessarily vote against it. I'm just throwing out there that I don't feel super strongly that that's something we should pursue.
So shouldn't such actions be considered more at administrative level than motion level? I mean, that would be true for any.
Well, I have the same thought.
Yeah.
That's something we should probably just defer to.
Yeah.
Well, our legal
Right.
counsel.
I think that we may need to go back on the record and ask this, but I would assume that before the staff could register an order that we do as a judgment, that would require more approval. That's why I'm thinking about that now, as opposed to just being administrative.
maybe we consider that outside of the individual pharmacist specific and just consider it as a separate agenda item. I noticed that there was a consent order in 2017 for this pharmacist. So I don't know if that might have any bearing on what the current.
So what do y'all want to do?
Well, I'm okay with the thing I was thinking about while I was listening. Is I'm all for the disciplinary fine, the investigative cost. Do we vote today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where you at?
That was my question.
What does it take? What does it take?
Well, I wasn't saying, you know, 9 months, but.
Yeah, no, I mean,
What is it today, or you say?
I mean, it's
For both.
for the enterprise.
I'll say it. I agree with you, I agree with you.
Is that good with the administrative costs then?
Sure, I will.
So for this particular case, that's $1,425 in a disciplinary fine and a $375 administrative investigation.
Revocation.
So a total of $1,800 fine and yeah. Do we put a timeline on when they have to pay that?
Oh, their license revoked today, right? I mean,
What more do you need?
Sure.
And then if they need a pharmacist license by 3 o'clock.
Yeah, they have to reinstate it.
Yes, I was June 15th would be your June. And
June 15th for what?
the, whatever we let it. June 15th is the due date.
Okay, and then the license.
No, it's already revoked.
Gotcha.
But that gives staff the ability to, if they choose to do so, send it to collections for an unpaid debt.
Wait, you were given.
No.
Just
we're
time
not
to pay,
giving-
but not time to keep on.
Yeah, the license is revoked effective today, but
Then the payments go on receipt. Do it there.
Well, they haven't paid this far. I have to think
Yeah.
about it.
Well, you really think that sticking to that's what we need?
No.
It's due and payable upon receipt.
It already did.
okay. You just volunteered to make a motion.
Debbie, do you have anything else to add before we go back on the record?
what was that last thing going back and forth? I mean, we'd revoke it today. Are we? They can't get their license back till they pay.
Due upon receipt rather than giving them until June 15th.
Yeah, don't give them till June 15th.
Good job, Debbie.
Okay.
We have several of these, might consider, would it be okay if we just, set a fine of $100 per hour for what they were short of CDE rather than calculated for each one of them?
I can provide that.
So we basically aren't charging them any different for not showing up. We're just revoking their license for not showing up. I mean, and not following what they should have done.
Well, I would say not showing up, plus not even giving it any type of feedback,
Right,
no interaction whatsoever, it sounds like.
right. And I know we could have just made the fine more, but that isn't gonna help anything. The thing that's gonna help us is revoking the license if they're interested in practicing.
Anyone else got anything else before we go? Back on the record.
We'll now go back on the record for the board's decision.
I'd like to entertain a motion. Still, anyone?
I guess I got elected to do it. All right, in the action, a matter of Lisa Gill, PD 12284, case number 2022 CE-009. Allegations A1 through A4 have been true, and charges C1 and 2 having been proven. the board makes the motion that Dr. Gill be fined $100 per deficient credit hour, which is 14.25 hours. So that would be a fine of $1,425. She also be assessed an administrative fee for administrative cost of recent investigation of $375 for a total of $1,800 fine. This would be due and payable upon receipt of notification from the board. And finally, effective today, we revoke the pharmacist license.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further conversation on this? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The record reflects the vote was unanimous. Please reduce the board decision to writing and make your attempt service upon all parties. If the respondent cares to appeal the decision, appeal can be taken under any specific statutory provision relating to this board or under the Arkansas Administrative Procedures Act found in Arkansas Code annotated section 2515-201 et seq. There are no other questions or comments. This hearing is concluded and the record is closed. Who's next?
Like to do Jeffrey Castor next.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's go on the record. My name is Blake Noren. I'm the hearing officer today in the matter of Jeffrey Castor, PD 13089, case number 2022-023. This matter will be heard before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy. The hearing concerns the matters specified in the order and notice of hearing. I'll note that Dr. Castor is not present in the hall as it sounded. Board counsel, will you identify yourself for the record, please?
Ashley Bales, General Counsel for the Arkansas Board of Pharmacy.
And are you ready to proceed on this matter?
I am ready to proceed.
All witnesses, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And are there any exhibits that you'd like to?
Yes, move to admit into evidence exhibits number 1 through 4 in this matter.
There are no objections. The exhibits will be admitted.
And I also ask the board to take judicial notice of the applicable Arkansas statutory law, Arkansas Pharmacy Board regulations, specifically in this matter, Rule 0206003B2.
Do you wish to make an opening statement?
And I'll waive opening, but I'd like to call Dr. Brenda McCready. Dr. McCready, can you identify for the board exhibit number 1?
It is the order and notice of hearing for Jeffrey Castor, PD 13089, in the student's room.
And exhibit number 2?
Exhibit number 2 is the proof of service of the order notice of hearing. It was mailed to Jeffrey Castor and then received, delivered to his address on February 6, 2023 at 10:13 a.m.
And referring back to the order of notice of hearing, can you identify for the board what the allegations are with regard to Mr. Castor?
The respondent failed to acquire the required number of continuing education hours in order to renew his or her pharmacist license for 2022. Respondent failed to get 12 of the 12 live hours as required by board regulation OT 06-000-3B2.
And when Dr. Castor filed for renewal, he attested that he had 30 hours of continuing education, correct?
Yes, he did.
Have you had any contact with Mr. Castor or Dr. Castor with regard to this matter?
I have sent emails and certified letters. I have not had any contact from Dr. Castor to the board.
Anything else you'd like to add with regard to Dr. Castor that we've not done?
No.
That's all I have for Dr. McCready.
Questions from the board?
Do we know where he's working?
He is not from, he does not live in Arkansas. And none of these are licensed as fixed in another facility.
Anything else from the board?
Was that he's not working? Is that what the answer was?
Dr. McCready, it's on 12 hours live.
Correct,
Total number was still 30, just didn't have the 12 live.
correct.
Anything else from the board? Board council would like to make a closing statement.
I would ask for disciplinary action from the board in this matter, and with the assessment of $100 per hour that Dr. Casper has missed, which is $1,200. Also ask for a administrative investigative fee for the board's work on this matter of $375.
At this time, we'll go off the record for the board's recess for deliberation, or for the board's deliberations and a decision regarding the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and any penalties to be handed down. Once the board reaches a decision, we will go back on the record. Deliberations are open to the public under the Freedom of Information Act. All parties may remain and observe the deliberations. We're now off the record.
I can make a motion.
We'll go back on.
We'll now go back on the record for the board's decision.
I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, in the matter of Jeffrey Castor, PD 13089, case number 2022-023. 4 finds and allegations 1 through 4 are true. Charges 1 and 2 are proven. My motion is to revoke this pharmacist license effective today, to levy a disciplinary fine of $1,200, which represents $100 per hour times the 12 hours live that he was short, and a $375 investigative cost.
All right.
I'm sorry, let me add that the fine and the investigative costs are due immediately upon
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Mitchell. Any further comments? All in favor, please say aye. Passes.
Please let the record reflect that the decision is unanimous. Please reduce the board decision to writing and make your attempt service upon all parties. If the respondent cares to appeal the decision, appeal can be taken under any specific provision relating to this board or under the Arkansas Administrative Procedures Act found in Arkansas Code annotated section 2515-201 and sec. If there are no other questions or comments, this hearing is concluded and the record is closed.
I'd like to do Miriam Slay next.
We'll go on the record. My name is Clayton Moore, and I'm the hearing officer today in the matter of Miriam Slay, PD 12059, case number 2022 CE-185. This hearing is being held before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy, and it concerns matters specified in the order of notice of hearing. I'll note that Dr. Slay is not present and the call has been sounded. Board counsel, will you please identify yourself for the record?
Ashley Bales, General Counsel for the Arkansas Board of Pharmacy.
And will any witnesses raise their right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And are there any preliminary matters or exhibits to be admitted?
Yes, I'd like to move to admit into evidence exhibits 1 through 4 in this matter.
If there are no objections, they will be admitted as exhibits 1 through 4.
In addition, I ask the board to take judicial notice of this applicable Arkansas statutory law and pharmacy board regulations, specifically in this matter, Rule 0206-003B2.
Counsel, call your first witness.
Dr. Brenda McCready. Thank you, Dr. McCready. Can you identify for the board what is exhibit number 1?
It is the order and notice of hearing for the hearing this morning for Miriam Slade, PB 12059.
And exhibit number 2, can you identify that?
It is the proof of service for the order notice of hearing that was mailed to Ms. Slade.
Does that proof of service indicate it was delivered on February 8th, or February, yes, February 8th?
Yes, it does.
Can you refer to the order notice of hearing and describe to the board, tell the board what the allegations are with regard to this slate?
The respondent failed to acquire the required numbers of continuing education. She was short 2.75 hours for a total of 30 hours. She did have her live hours. These were hours in addition to the live hours. She is.
Right, anything in addition that we'd like to present regarding Ms. Slade or Dr. Slade that we've not gone over?
She does not currently have a place of employment listed with our licensing database. However, she was employed up until 5/25 of 2022. For the database.
That's all I have for Dr. McCray.
Questions from the board? Honestly.
I would ask for take disciplinary action with regard to Dr. Slade and assess a $275 fine for the hours missed. In addition to that, we would ask for $375 administrative investigative costs for the time that the board has spent investigating this matter.
This time we'll go off the record for the board's deliberations and decision regarding the findings of fact, conclusions of law, or any penalties to be handed down. Once the board reaches a decision, we will go back on the record. Deliberations are open to the public under the Freedom of Information Act. All parties may remain and observe the deliberations.
I can make a motion, but we're missing page 2 of the order notice of hearing, so I need to actually see a paper copy, so I know.
What was that, Becca?
Just business.
Yeah, I can make a motion, but I'm missing page 2 that has some charges on it.
I can approve.
Not there.
It'll be in there.
I've got it.
Page 2.
So yeah, I guess 1 3.
Big copy of page 2.
So it'd be the same motion as the last two.
You want to go, John, or want to go, John?
Front.
Yes.
We are all.
We are, but we are still recording.
That was a distinction of age difference.
You what?
That's good enough.
Yeah, I just remembered talking about my mask, so I tried to.
Let's deal with
Right,
that.
okay. It's stored in part of the country and part of the country and stuff.
It is everything.
Yeah, there's some mess out there.
I think that power is right, that's so right. Jeff Nichols. Oh, yeah.
I got seven.
Close.
Yeah, I got seven.
You got what?
Got seven.
Yeah.
Took it back to the room and it was hot everywhere.
Haven't been there for a while, no. Got some sound, Cheers, which is a sister restaurant. It's really good. But, I've seen some ads for that too.
My home. It's the.
Yeah.
You're already into that.
So. Yeah, so. Council. But I don't know what's in. We do, that's exactly. What? Yeah, that's bad. But it was. All right, we're going back on the record.
Let's go back on the record.
We have a motion that we want to entertain.
I think for council, what, motion?
I'd like to make an addendum to exhibit number 1. Should contain a letter dated January 30th, 2023 from me, an order notice of hearing that is 3 pages. I believe those documents have been passed out to the board members.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any objections?
Get this down here.
No, no objections, so.
No objections.
No objections, so admitted.
Do you need to either email me that, Dr. Kirtley?
It's on its way.
So in the matter of Miriam Slay, PD 12059, case number 2022 CE 185. We find allegations A1 through A4 are true. Charges C1 through C2 are proven. I make a motion that we levy a $275 disciplinary fine. That's $100 for each hour of CE that was not obtained. A $375 administrative cost for the investigation, and that we revoke our pharmacist license effective today. Those fines are due upon receipt.
Have a motion in this matter, do I have a second?
Second.
Producer seconded. Any further comments on this matter? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
The record reflect that the vote was unanimous. Please reduce the board decision to writing and make your attempt to service upon all parties. The respondent cares to appeal the decision. Appeal can be taken under any specific provision relating to this board or under the Administrative Procedures Act found at Arkansas Code annotated section 2515-201 at sec. If there are no other questions or comments, This hearing is concluded and the record is closed.
Let's do Joseph Zavala next.
We'll go on the record. My name is Blake Norton. I'm the hearing officer today in the matter of Joseph Zavala, PD 13709, case number 2022-217. This matter will be heard before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy. It concerns matters specified in the order and notice of hearing. I'll note that Dr. Zavala is not present and the hall has been sounded. Board counsel, please identify yourself for the record.
Ashley Vales, General Counsel for the Arkansas Board of Pharmacy.
Would all who are to testify in this matter please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Are there any exhibits to be admitted?
Yes, I move to admit into evidence exhibits 1 through 4 for this matter.
If there are no objections, they will be admitted as exhibits 1 through 4.
And ask the board to take judicial notice of applicable Arkansas statutory law and Arkansas Pharmacy Board rules. Specifically in this matter, Rule 02060003 B2.
Would you like to make an opening statement?
I'll waive opening.
Please call your person.
Dr. Brenda McCready. McCready, can you identify? Oh, she is one. Okay, sorry. Dr. McCready, can you identify for the record exhibit number 1?
It is the order and notice of hearing for Joseph Zavala, PD 13709, for this hearing this morning.
And exhibit number 2, can you identify that for the record?
That is the proof of service for the order notice of hearing, and it was received and delivered at his address on February 7, 2023.
It
Actually, it was not delivered. There was an animal interference, but it was sent to the address of record.
Turning back to the order and notice of hearing, can you identify for the board the allegations in this matter?
The respondent failed to require the required members of continuing education. He failed to get 1/2 hour of the 12 live hours that were required. And I will tell you that the defendant the respondent did attest that he had 30 hours. He attested to 29 hours plus 2 hours of CE, which we would allow. However, when I send out the letter asking them for proof of CE, they have to send that back to me. I've never had proof of the CE, therefore I cannot count. That's why it showed him short that now. And it is incumbent on them to respond to the board and when there is an audit of their CE.
Thank you. Anything else you would like to add with regard to Dr. Zavala that we've not honored?
Only to say that I've had no contact with Dr. Zavala. I checked my emails again this morning to ensure that nothing was missed, and I had no emails on file. Oh, and he is not employed in the state of Arkansas. We do not have any permanent history on file at all for him as a pharmacist.
That's all I have for Dr. McCready.
Questions from the board?
Debbie, you have any questions?
No, he hasn't responded and hadn't taken care of it, so.
Those are the questions.
Questions?
Yeah, I'm excited to start voting.
Close the statement.
Board staff would recommend disciplinary action in this matter and an assessment of a fine of $50 based on the hours that Dr. Zavala was short. We would also ask for a $375 investigative cost for Dr. McCready's time in investigating this matter.
This time we'll go off the record for the board's deliberations and decision regarding the findings of fact, conclusions of the law, or any penalties to be handed down. Once the board reaches a decision, we will go back on the record. The deliberations are open to the public under the Freedom of Information Act. All parties may remain and observe the deliberations.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make it.
So, we have a motion.
We'll now go back on the record for the board's decision.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
In the matter of Joseph Zavala, PD 13709, case number 2022 CE-217, allegations 1 through 4 being true and charges 1 and 2 being proven. The board makes the motion that we fine Mr. Zavala $50 for the half-hour CE that he is deficient. Also assess an administrative investigative cost of $375 for a total of $425 fine. These fines are due and payable upon receipt, and that effective today, we revoke Dr. Zavala's license.
Have a motion. Anybody for a second?
I will second.
A second from Dr. Jolly. Any further comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Passes.
Let the record reflect the vote is unanimous. Please reduce the board decision to writing and make or attempt service upon all parties. If the respondent cares to appeal the decision, appeal will be taken under any specific provision relating to this board or under the Arkansas Administrative Procedures Act found at Arkansas Code annotated section 2515-201 et sec. If there are no other questions or comments, this hearing is concluded and the record is closed.
To Robert Caruso.
My name is Clayton Orr, and I'm the hearing officer today in the matter of Robert Caruso, PD 14680, case number 2022 CE-022. This matter will be heard before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy. This hearing concerns matters specified in the order and notice of hearing. I would note that Dr. Caruso is not present and that the hall has been sounded. Board counsel, please identify yourself for the record.
Ashley Bales, General Counsel for the Arkansas Board of Pharmacy.
And will all witnesses please raise your right hand and repeat after me, or sorry, respond to the following. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Are there any preliminary matters or exhibits to be admitted?
I move to admit into evidence exhibits 1 through 3 in this matter.
Without objection, they will be admitted as exhibits 1 through 3. Counsel Boyer first.
I'm sorry, I need to enter into evidence exhibit 1 through 4. I can identify for the record through Dr. Grady's testimony what exhibit 4 is.
Okay. Without objection, exhibit 4 will be also admitted. Correct.
And additional, I asked for the board to take judicial notice about the full Arkansas statutory laws and Arkansas Pharmacy Board rules, specifically in this matter, Rule 0206-0003B2. I would like to call Dr. Brenda McCready. Dr. McCready, can you identify for the board what is exhibit number 1?
It is the order and notice of hearing for Robert Caruso, PD 14680 for this hearing tonight.
And exhibit number 2. Can you identify that?
Exhibit number 2 is the proof of delivery for the order notice of hearing as well as his address of the record. It does not show that it was delivered, but it was sent to his address of record. And I also emailed him with the information already here.
Referring back to the order notice of hearing, can you identify for the board what the allegations are?
The respondent failed to acquire the required numbers of continuing education. He was short 12 live hours of the 12 live that are required. He has not contacted the board at all regarding this issue. I have emailed him, giving him numerous opportunities to discuss the consent agreement prior to having the hearing.
And based on your investigation, are the 12 hours missing supported by the records in the CPE
They are.
Right, and then can you identify for the record exhibit 4?
Exhibit 4 is the copy of the document where the pharmacists renew their license and they attest to the fact that they have completed their 30 hours of continuing education.
And Dr. Caruso's name is listed on that, correct?
Yes, it is.
Is there anything else you want to add with regard to Dr. Caruso?
No.
Nothing further, Dr. McCready?
Questions from the board?
We would ask the board to take disciplinary action on this matter and assess a fine of $100 per hour that Dr. Caruso was short, totals $1,200 in fine. We also ask for a $375 assessment for investigative costs for Dr. McCready's time reviewing this matter.
This time we'll go off the record for the board's deliberations. Deliberations are open to the public under the Freedom of Information Act. All parties may remain and observe deliberations. Let's go back on the record for the board's decision.
All right, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Okay, in the matter of Robert Caruso, PD number 14680, case number 2022 CE-022. We found that allegations 1 through 4 are true, and the charges C1 and C2 are proven. And our ruling is to levy a fine of $1,200 per CE and $375 for administration costs, for a total levy of $1,575 in the revocation of this license. And this is doable on receipt of the order.
All right, we have a motion, just can I entertain a second? Second. Got a second from Dr. Williams. Any other comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
The record reflects the vote is unanimous. Please reduce the board decision to writing and make or attend service upon all parties. If the respondent cares to appeal the decision, appeal can be taken under any specific provision relating to this board or under the Administrative Procedures Act found in Arkansas Code annotated section 2515-201 and sec. If there are no other questions or comments, this hearing is concluded and the record is closed.
Thanks.
No, I'll do the order and this. Yeah, I'll do the order after this hearing.
I don't know if we need to sign.
No, it's findings of fact, conclusion, law, or issue record.
I'd like to call Christina Chow next.
They thought it meant lunch.
I'm hoping.
We'll go back on the record in the matter of Christina Chow, PD 14705, case number 2022 CE-025. My name is Clayton Dorn. I'm the hearing officer today. This matter will be heard before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy. It concerns matters specified in the order and notice of hearing. For the record, I'll note that Dr. Chow is not present and the hall has been sounded. Board counsel, please identify yourself for the record.
Ashley Bales, the general counsel for the Arkansas Board of Pharmacy.
All who are witnesses, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And are there any exhibits to be admitted?
Yes, I asked to admit into evidence exhibits number 1 through 7, part of Dr. Chow.
If there are no objections, exhibits 1 through 7 will be admitted.
I'd also like to ask the board to take judicial notice of Arkansas statutory law applicable in this matter, as well as Arkansas Board of Pharmacy rules, specifically in this matter, Rule 02060003B2. I'd like to call Dr. Brandon McCready.
Go ahead.
Dr. McCready, can you identify for the board exhibit number 1?
It is an order of notice of hearing for Christina Chow, PD 14705.
Can you identify exhibit number 2?
Exhibit number 2 is the order notice of hearing proof of delivery.
And it was sent to the address on record before staff regarding Dr. Chow.
Yes, it was.
And if you refer back to the order of notice of hearing, can you tell the board what the allegations are in this matter?
Dr. Chow failed to get the required number of continuing education hours. She was short three live hours and an additional 3 hours of continuing education for a total of 6 hours. I'm sorry. She had she was short 3 hours of live, which actually made her 2 hours short on the other, which would have given her a total of 30. My apologies. So there is a scrivener's error in the order of hearing. It should say 2 hours.
Sorry, total.
5 hours. She did.
Can you identify for the board exhibit number 3?
Exhibit number 3 is an email that I received from Christina Weeks, who is Christina Chow. And it states in there that during the 2021 renewal period, she was 5 hours short. She apologized for the oversight. She since completed the hours and 12 hours of live contact. However, she did not return the consent agreement, nor did she return the monetary penalty with that.
And can you identify for the board exhibit number 6?
Exhibit number 6 is an additional attempt to reach her. I actually tried to reach her again yesterday. It's an email that said we attempted to contact her numerous times, that the hearing would go forward as scheduled unless we had the attached consent agreement in payment. The hearing was scheduled for today. There was additional interaction. I think the attorney has attempted to reach her several times in addition to me reaching her. She is employed at a facility that is licensed in Arkansas. She is not a PNC.
And with regard to exhibit number 5, is Dr. Chow's name on the list of pharmacists who attested to hours that they didn't actually?
Yes, it is.
Anything else you'd like to add with regard to Dr. Chow? We have not covered.
No.
All I have for Dr. McCready.
Closing statement.
We would ask the board to take disciplinary action in this matter and assess a fine of $500, like $100 per hour that Dr. Chow was short. In addition, we'd ask for a $375 administrative cost to cover the time of investigation that Dr. McCready took in this action.
And I apologize, support council.
Dr. Matt?
Did you say she is or is not employed in Arkansas?
She is not. She does not live in Arkansas. She's employed in a wholesale facility that is licensed in the state of Arkansas. However, she is not the PIC.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Board council? Anything else?
Nothing further.
This time we'll go off the record for the board's deliberations. The deliberations are open to the public under the Freedom of Information Act. All parties may remain and observe the deliberations. We'll now go back on the record for the board's decision.
Does anyone want to oppose the motion?
I'll make it.
Dr. Chow?
So in the matter of Christina Chow, PD 14705, case number 2022 CE-025. Court finds that allegations 1 through 4 are true, charges 1 and 2 are proven. Make a motion that we immediately revoke the license, that we levy a $500 disciplinary fine, represents $2 per hour that she was short, and that we assess a $375 fine for investigative costs. fines and assessments are due.
We have a motion, Dr. Jolly. Dr. Richard, second. Any further comments? Debbie?
Did Dr. Jolly say to revoke the license today?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Let the record reflect that the motion passes unanimously. Please reduce the board decision to writing and make or attend service upon all parties. If the respondent cares to appeal the decision, appeal can be taken under any specific provision relating to this board or under the Administrative Procedures Act found in Arkansas Code annotated 2515-201 exec. If there are no other questions or comments, this hearing is concluded and the record is closed.
One more, Larry Talley.
Will now go on the record the matter of Larry Talley, PD 09412, case number 2022 CE-199. My name is Clayton Warren. I'm the hearing officer today in this matter. It will be heard before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy. This hearing concerns matters specified in the order and notice of hearing. I'll note that Dr. Talley is not currently present and that the call has been sounded. Board counsel, please identify yourself for the record.
Ashley Bales, General Counsel for the Arkansas Board of Pharmacy.
With those who are or may be witnesses today, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Are there any exhibits to be admitted?
I'd like to move to admit into evidence exhibits number 1 through 8.
There are no objections. Exhibits 1 through 8 will be admitted.
I'd also like the board to take judicial notice of applicable Arkansas statutory law and Arkansas Pharmacy Board rules, specifically in this matter, Rule 02060003 BC. I'd like to call Dr. McCready as a witness. And Dr. McCready, can you identify for the record exhibit number 1?
It is the order notice of hearing for Larry Talley, PD 09412 for today's meeting.
And exhibit number 2?
It is the proof of delivery for the order notice of hearing that was delivered to Mr. Talley at his home address on February 2nd, 2022.
And exhibit number 8, can you summarize for the board what that details?
This is a letter from Dr. Talley to our Attorney General Counsel Bales, thanking her for the opportunity to maintain his license if he elected to do so. He basically said he was not coming, his granddaughter has a week off and he was going to spend it with her. He said he needed to take his wife to an appointment the day before this hearing. And he said, regarding his licensure, he sincerely thought he would be totally legal by obtaining extra CE. Should the board choose to revoke my license, could you please list the reason as failure to comply rather than unprofessional conduct? So perhaps it could be placed on watch until the end of the licensing period. He has no intention of renewing my license or working in Arkansas. This would allow my license to be retired in a more gracious fashion.
And can you identify for the record? Well, let's go to the order notice here. Can you identify for the board the allegations in this matter?
Respondent failed to get 12 hours of the 12 required live continuing education hours in the renewal period.
And there's been several correspondence between you and Dr. Talley, correct?
There has.
And those are reflected, I believe, in exhibit number 5. I'd like to summarize what those interactions are.
Dr. Talley, we had several conversations, emails back and forth. The first one was based on the recent audit that he was short, that the board would find $100 per hour and he had to make twice the hours. He sent an email back through the ASPP website through Jennifer that said he was somewhat surprised that the board did not make exceptions during the COVID pandemic. He accepts the decision, and after 50 years, he regretfully is going to surrender his license. So you can retire that number or reassign it to someone else. Actually, it's okay. I've never worked in Arkansas anyhow. Thanks for being courteous and a helpful group and take care of their talent. He was actually the pharmacist in charge for a facility that was licensed in Arkansas up until 12/3/2019. So while he was not physically in Arkansas, he was an Arkansas pharmacist in charge for that state facility. I went on to tell him that staff did not have the ability to change the requirements set by the board to rectify the violation. $100 per hour penalty is the standard penalty that has been charged for the violation for many years, as is a requirement to make up twice the hours. You attested to the fact that you have the requirements renewed on 12/28/2021. If you choose not to sign the consent agreement, we will schedule you for a hearing before the board. He emailed back and said, I did not know that pharmacists had to attend live sessions. And I emailed him and said the law had been in place since 2010, and I have attached it.
So he tried to surrender it, basically.
He asked to surrender it in July of 2022.
Okay.
Carried the license for a year.
And can you identify for the board exhibit number 7?
Exhibit number 7 is a letter that Dr. Talley wrote to Dr. Kirtley. It was a letter in response to a letter received dated it looks like 1/14/2022. I don't believe that's the correct date. The entire matter stems from a misunderstanding of the term live CE. I've always understood this to mean attending seminars and meetings in person. When COVID issues canceled all meetings in my area, I was under the opinion that live CE was suspended until further notice, which I have not received. When I called Brenda McCready to explain the issue, she became very combative and disrespectful. What ensued was a bellicose rant and lecture to me. She raised her voice, which I didn't appreciate, and acted in a most unprofessional manner. I've been registered in 3 states, and this is by far my most unpleasant experience in dealing with the board of pharmacy. She issues mandates to me, which is not her job in my estimation. Nevertheless, I'm a 73-year-old retired pharmacist and have no intention of keeping this license. I have never worked in Arkansas, nor do I plan to. Therefore, I'm willfully surrendering my license for immediate cancellation. Thank you for your time and consideration. Have a Merry Christmas and a healthy, prosperous 2022. Take care of those out.
Dr. McCray, with regard to Dr. Talley, he has had contact regarding this issue with several people from the board. Fair statement that he had contact with you, Dr. Kirtley, Inspector Cindy Fain, and myself.
That is correct. And I believe the response was the same for all.
Anything else you want to add with regard to Dr. Talley?
I understand that he did state that he wanted to surrender his license. However, he attested to the fact that he had CE and he held that license for all of 2021 and half of 2022 before deciding to surrender because he had attested to something he did. And I think the board should do that.
That's all I have for Dr. McCray.
Questions from the board?
You said, Dr. McCready, 2021 and 2022.
I'm sorry, 2022. I did say that. Where did he work? He was at Walker Brothers Drug in Pine Bean, Louisiana. And he was the CIC there from 2/6/2018 to 12/3/2019.
Any other questions?
So short closing, if I could. Board staff recommends a disciplinary action with regard to Dr. Talley, an assessment of $1,200, which reflects $100 per hour that Dr. Talley was short on his CE. and a investigative fee of $375, which reflects the investigative costs that Dr. McCready incurred regarding this matter.
This time we'll go off the record for deliberations. These deliberations are open to the public under the Freedom of Information Act. All parties may remain and observe deliberations.
All right. So we'll back to- Who's up?
So how this is different is he's already surrendered, is that?
We didn't accept it because he had put on there, he lied on his application.
Whether intentional or not.
The recall, Dr. McCready.
Well, this time we'll go back on the record. Court counsel.
Dr. McCready, can you identify exhibit number 3 for the board?
I can't, this is a paper renewal that we received from the pharmacist. It was to renew his license. If you will notice on the second and third page, he listed all of his CE hours that he had. And if you notice, at the end of each one of those, it says H01P, which indicates that it is not live CE. There is not a live CE program listed on this renewal. So he did in fact know that he did not have any live CE when he
Back up the record.
So we'll go back on the record.
He's good.
I don't really see any reason to treat him differently.
I can't hear you, Dr. Darley.
I don't see any reason, Dr. Mack, to treat this any differently than the other handful that was done.
The only difference I really see is I get it, but he did say he wanted to surrender it months and months ago. I don't know. Did we not accept that surrender? Is that basically?
My understanding, we'll have to go back on the record. My understanding, he'd already renewed.
And touchdown.
Yeah. He'd already renewed and attested to the CU requirements.
Well, do we have a motion?
I'd like to call Dr. recall Dr. McCready.
Yeah, let's do that.
At this time, we'll go back on the record. Board counsel.
Recall Dr. McCready.
Yesterday, we accepted consent agreements from a large number of pharmacists. And I pointed out during that consent agreement session where we accepted those orders, that we had numerous pharmacists that had paid the fine and opted to go to surrender rather than get the continuing education that they were required to get. He did not make that offer. He did not make any offer whatsoever of trying to work with the board to meet any sort of requirement. We had about 5 or 6 pharmacists that paid the fine and surrendered or went in active so that they did not have to obtain the continuing education that was required to make the consent agreement.
I have a question for Dr. McCready, if possible. Isn't it, forgive me, or help me out here. If the pharmacist is to surrender their license, don't they mail in their license? In that part of the deal, you don't just say, I could say I want to surrender my license, but it doesn't mean anything until I send it in.
They do surrender their license. This is it.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Dr. Mack?
No.
All right, friends.
Some will go off the record for deliberations.
Please. Anybody else feel the need to consider this one differently, I guess?
Dr. Mack?
No.
And at this time, we'll go back on the record for the board's decision.
Hold on just a second, take a start. Refer, I'm sorry. Dr. John, tell us why you think you don't.
Oh, I'm not saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying what I've said previously is I don't think we should treat it differently, but I wanted to make sure no one disagreed.
Okay. I just wanted, I misunderstood. Thank you.
Back on the record. And the board's decision.
So may I entertain a motion?
Yeah, I'll make it.
Dr. John?
All right, so in the matter of Larry Talley, PD 09412, case number 2022 CE-009. The board finds that allegations 1 through 4 are true and that charge is proven. Make a motion that we revoke this license, that we administer a fine of $1,200, which is $100 per hour that short. That we also assess a $375 investigative costs as part of that fine, which is due immediately upon receipt.
All right, we have a motion from Dr. Jolly. Is there a second? Second. For Mr. Simpson, is there any further comments, questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Let the record reflect that the decision is unanimous. Please reduce the board decision to writing and make your attempted service upon all parties. If the respondent cares to appeal the decision, appeal can be taken under any specific provision relating to this board or under the Administrative Procedures Act found at Arkansas Code annotated section 2515-201 sec. If there are no other questions or comments, this hearing is concluded and the record is closed.
Dr. McCready, thanks for all your hard work on this. Thank you.
This is the recorder off. I'm here for loud.
Anybody else have anything else for us? I'm not aware of anything. Brady, any board members?
Anybody? Anyone?
Motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn. Let's do it.
Thank you, Dr. Mack.
Thank y'all. See you next time.
Absolutely.